Ragnarok has just been released on Ark Survival Ascended. This classic Ark is notorious for being most players' favorite map back on Ark Survival Evolved, but I never really cared for it. However, I decided to give it another chance with this release. So I'm going to spend the next 100 days on Ragnarok, taming new creatures like the bison, exploring the tallest peaks and lowest depths that this newly refreshed map has to offer, and of course, I'm also going to fight the new boss, Noonatak. Now, I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared to fight this giant wyvern, but I can pray that my future dino army will carry me. This dude literally killed both the dragon and the manticore, then took the arena and their aura for himself. So please comment good luck for Kipper and I, we're really gonna need it. However, maybe the newly added features from the Lost Colony expansion pack will help, such as the skill tree, Veilwind, and Drakeling. Anyways, I'm gonna go spawn in on the beach now as I always do. I've got an oversized flying lizard to kill. I appeared in the ribcage of an enormous Rex located in the Viking Bay 2 zone, and after the initial implant scratch, I took my first few steps, which resulted in a new tab popping up on the left side of my screen. Oh wait, that's the what was that? That's the new thing from the Lost Colony. Yeah, you do these milestones, and then you get points. You can unlock this, and this just like makes stuff better, you know? 10 out of 10 explanation. Anyways, it's really lush. This looks cool. I picked up a couple of rocks off the ground to get started on progression. And I had a second look at the skill tree menu. One of the upgrades was called Hot Blooded, and it increased natural health regeneration by 100%. And you can also upgrade these skills further by investing more points, as you can see here. So pretty much just as I do stuff that I normally do to progress, I'll just like, you know, get points that I can use to make myself better. But all that starts with making my first primitive pickaxe, unlocking new engrams, and smacking a rock to make a hatchet as well. Oh, getting bodied by compies, that's the old stuff apparently. Do need hide, good thing I have a new hatchet. There might have been a bit too many compies though, so I got an idea from my last video. I quickly snagged some wood from a tree, and I made a torch, which is a pretty effective weapon at taking out these rascals. What I didn't see coming though was a Dilo, and to take that down, I would probably need better weaponry, so my next action of course was to dip. I'm gonna lead this guy away. Ow! Oh my god, that Ichthy is gonna be the death of me. Since I can no longer sprint for the life of me, the Dilo slowly caught up to me, bit me a couple of times, and sent me right back to the respawn screen. Welcome to Ragnarok. This is gonna be a long 100 days, I can tell. Once I actually respawned and checked my inventory for approximately 5 seconds, I got assaulted yet again by the same Dilo as well. That's the same Dilo that just killed me. So with my stuff recovered, I quickly harvested the dead compies for some hide, and I soon completed the first milestone in the skill tree. Oh! I got a skill thing. I distanced myself to lose the aggro of the ops, and I checked the skill tree to see if I could level something up. So I got a point, right? Oh no, so I think if I complete all these 3, then I get 1 skill point. Okay. And the next 2 missions weren't as simple as walking. I had to loot 10 supply drops and farm 10,000 worth of any resource. So anyways, that's far in the future. So for now, I just repaired my torch and unlocked the next set of engrams before getting to work on crafting spears, so I would no longer get bullied by the early game creatures. Now, while I was admiring the new map, a fight broke out just behind me between a parasaur and that pesky Dilo. So of course, I wanted to help out, so I pulled out my freshly crafted spears and chucked one at the Dilo. Oh, I think I hit the parasaur. Are you kidding me? Not only did I have to deal with the gang of Dilos, but the parasaur now as well. Luckily though, it was already bloody from the fight, so a few torch swings later, I secured some extra hide. Now since this place was an active war zone, I ran back to hide under the giant skeleton. And after a couple of smacks, I remembered that Ragnarok had a quick way to boost my journey. Do you think they kept the loot boxes that used to be on Ragnarok for metal tools? That's what I need to do. But before I commit to any adventure, I had to prepare a few things. So first, I made a campfire which I slapped down in the jaws of this Rex to cook up some steak. I also crafted new spears before finding out that this Rex had a name. Ranagon? Oh, that's probably this. Anywho, I picked up a bunch of fiber from the bushes as I wanted to make some cloth armor. A better alternative to running around barefoot and naked. Boom, full set of cloth. I'm gonna try and gear up a little bit, and then I want to move down the beach to see if I can't find those boxes that give metal tools, you know? You guys remember those from ASE? I didn't forget to make bolas either though. Once enough meat finished cooking, it was time to assert dominance around these parts. Now that I have some spears, I'm taking down Dilos, dude. I have a vendetta against these things. Ragnarok Dilos need to all be slain, put down, euthanized. Whatever. The first one I decided to throw hands with was of course the level 135, but it was still no match for my endless arsenal of 5-minute craft spears. On day 2, it was time to get mobile. I picked up my campfire and then munched on an unhealthy amount of berries, and I set out to find those rumored boxes. Alright, why is it nighttime? I know I have my gamma up, but this is like daytime, dude. It is almost midnight, and it is still this bright. That's weird. It looks cool though. It's like blue more than it's just dark and purple.
Why are you blue?
Okay, let's go see if we can't find those boxes. Now, while traveling, I took out a small family of dodos, as free hide in the early stages of Ark is always a blessing. Now, I didn't know exactly where I could find these boxes, but I do remember the blue obelisk having a few. Since I'm in doubt, I think I'll ask my Discord, which you can join down in the link below. Do it. It'd make me happy. What doesn't make me happy, on the other hand, is finding low level of dinos that I wish to tame. For example, hello, 20. You know, just for being that level, you deserve to die. Random dodos minding their business were also not off the hook just yet, so I domed another one before heading to the engram page to finally unlock some slightly more advanced weaponry. Get a bow and arrow, let's do that. I made the bow and a single arrow, and then I smacked up a rock for flint so I can make more. Surely I have to just tame a parry first. That has to be the move, right? Now, for the time being, I abandoned the idea of running to the blue obelisk, and I actually ended up coming back to the the Tyrannagon. On ASE, you guys see this, like, behind these trees, it's like rock arch pillar thing? There used to be crystal up there on ASE at least. I'd really like to get my hands on some crystal as fast as possible just so I can make a spyglass. I just had to figure out how to get up there first. On the other hand, there was this level 95 Pteranodon here, and that wouldn't be a bad first tame. However, the observant among you might have noticed that I have approximately 0 trank arrows. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even high enough level to make them yet. So step 1 of getting crystal plan was to power level up myself using cooking pots as usual. But first, I made a new campfire, as I did pick the last one up, but I most likely threw it out somewhere. Now, with some more meat cooking, I got to work on making the so-called XP pots. Right after hitting level 21, I straight double dinked a dodo and ran back to my campfire to start expanding and make a little starter outpost. But for that, of course, I'm gonna need some sort of structure. So I unlocked the thatch foundation and mortar and pestle engram. Now, one bush pick later, I crafted both the foundation and the mortar and pestle. But as I was placing them down in the jaws of the Rex, I got great news from my Discord chat. I have just been informed through my Discord server that the boxes are indeed not gone. Now, since the rumors were in fact true, I decided to make a few more bolas and drop some of my stuff off and then head out to find these boxes. Let's do this. I ended up running into a couple of gerbellas while hiking, and I was actually surprised to find them here, near the jungles, as you don't see them here too often. I want to tame one. And while admiring one, a dilo emerged from the bushes trying to kill a dodo. And of course, I couldn't let such mischief slide, so I quickly intervened by throwing a batch of spears up the dilo's skull. Alright, I gotta stay locked in on the mission. I can come back and tame a jerboa anytime. I need these metal tools. And just as I finished saying that, I actually spotted a few of the lucky boxes just down at the beach below me. So I carefully slid off the cliffside while somehow completely avoiding fall damage that would usually snap bones. Okay. Don't know how I didn't take fall damage there. Anyhow, I got to opening the boxes by brute force. And the first box actually hooked me up with a sword and a metal hatchet. The smaller boxes weren't actually as useful, but one of the medium ones actually dropped me a crossbow, which was definitely a worthwhile upgrade. Alright, let's keep going. I know there's more boxes to be had then. I'm so happy they did not take those out. Those are so clutch. I then ran up to another batch of crates and opened up all of them, but I didn't get a single metal pickaxe, which is what I was really hoping for. Now that I have a crossbow, I should be able to knock out a Pteranodon. A level 20 is not what I meant though, so back to gambling on crates I go. What if I harvest him with a pickaxe? Is that gonna change anything? The answer was no. I kept breaking all the crates I could find, but I still got a grand total of 0 pickaxes in the end. So I concluded that maybe they just don't drop from these. Crazy. They just don't drop metal pickaxes, I guess. These tools that I got though were enough of a jumpstart regardless. So I started heading back towards my camp. I did stop by to check the level of nearby Pteranodons, but they were all trash. Pick some fiber. I'm gonna make some hide clothes. The cloth set adrip was starting to get old, so I upgraded the hide. Back at Viking Bay on day 3, I ran up to the level 95 PT that I saw earlier, and I gently threw a pair of bolas at its feet. I then forced a couple of arrows into its head, which of course sent it to sleep. I then visited the engram page to unlock spike walls, as this area was not exactly the safest, speaking from past experience here. Now, with the PT fully enclosed, I could focus on getting some food for it. I didn't want to tame it on regular meat, obviously, so a sacrifice had to be made. I need a child sacrifice. You're not a child, but I just hate you. A completely reasonable crash out in my opinion. Anyhow, I ran back to camp to light up the campfire with the itchy's meat. Okay, let me get this fire going so I can stay fed. Ow, dude, what was that? Hey, wait, is that me? Is that my video? Dude, what is happening?
Do not worry, my fellow beach dweller. You have been chosen by the Red Magic 10S Pro, as it will help you on your journey to defeat Nun-Attack. Now I must go, for there are berries I need to consume. Farewell.
I'm so confused. How could this phone possibly help me to defeat Nun-Attack? I mean, it is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor and Red Core 3R Pro chip. That is actually pretty insane. This little thing has a lot of power. What else? It's got a crazy IceX cooling system as well as a 144Hz screen. That's better than my computer, what? These shoulder triggers would also be really good in battles. But still, how would this help me defeat Noon Attack? Oh, it wants me to cheat. Now, I don't know if I can do that, however playing on this thing does feel like cheating. None of these other players are standing a chance. And you know what? Screw fighting Noon Attack, I just want to play on my Red Magic 10S Pro. And you guys should also pick up one of these bad boys using my link in the description. You won't regret it. And I might even have to do 100 days on Ark Mobile since this phone can easily handle Ark, as well as everything else you need from a phone with ease. So click the link in the description or pinned comment and pick up the Red Magic 10S Pro today, and who knows, I might just see you on Ark Mobile. Okay, I've got to go finish taming this Pteranodon now. No idea how I'm gonna get the chitin for this. Future problem for future me. Like, very near future me. Soon enough, I spotted not one, but two baby dinos. A tiny master Uguay and a scared juvenile parasaur running from something. So the parasaur soon ceased to exist, and I got enough prime for the Pteranodon to tame. So of course, I ran back, opened up the spikes, and fed the soon-to-be Flappy. Now seeing as he only needed 2 feeds to wake up tamed, I picked up the spikes and waited around. Oh dude, the campfire light on the jaws of the Rex looked pretty cool. You guys can't tell me I'm wrong. Eventually though, the PT munched on another piece of prime meat, waking up mine and for some reason checking a milestone off the list. Name one herbivore. This is a carnivore, dude. I fed it meat. I named the bird Flappy as usual, and I opened up the milestone menu to see that the objective was in fact completed. Perhaps Flappy had a change in diet since we last met, and he was just too shy to let me know. Anyways, to get the saddle for him, I had to level up quite a bit once again. And I didn't want to lose Flappy while I was out and about, so for the time being, I enclosed him back in spikes to keep the critters out. And a second dilo pulled up right after that as well, justifying my concerns even further. Yup, exactly my point. You're real smart, aren't you? Thankfully though, they had the brain capacity of a toddler, so they were of no harm to Flappy through the spikes. Now, I just had to figure out how to get chitin for the saddle. There was plenty of scorpion spawns not too far away from here in the Viking Bay, however, many other dangerous carnivores also like to roam around that area. Flight's really going to be the key on this map. Ragnarok is huge, and honestly on ASC I didn't care for Ragnarok. I didn't really like it as a map, but honestly this is growing on me so far. Instead of going up the mountain to fight scorpions and potentially have my face eaten off in the process, I decided that I would just try to kill turtles for keratin instead. 12 keratin, not bad man, but it's not good. Yeah, if I wanted to make that saddle in this century, I'd probably be better off looking for buggy boys in the jungle. Even a small swarm of Meganoras could supply me with enough chitin to make one of the saddles, so I ran up the hill to look for some. Raptor right there. I guess I'm not finding anything over here. I jumped back down to the beach and headed towards the more dangerous side of the Viking Bay. Alright, this could be a huge mistake, but let's go up here. Basically, Carnivore Mountain, pretty much what I know this place as. And as soon as I made it to the top, I spotted something getting eaten in the jungle. And when I turned to see the other direction, the only thing I saw was a group of aloes assaulting innocent creatures. So I ran over to the edge of one of the overhang cliffs, and I had a quick look around to see if I could spot any scorpions. So I see vultures, aloes, Yankees. Overall, nothing of importance, and that aloe was starting to creep up on me, so it's time to head out. Honestly, man, it just looks like I'm gonna be killing turtles for keratin.
Hello.
Oh! This is why I have bolas. That was my cue to leave this mountain alone and go back to the beach to hunt turtles instead. At 140, I don't want to kill that. It would take so long. There was one more alternative though to depopulating the area of turtles, and that was to find beached whales. Those give a lot of spoiled meat, oil, hide, and keratin when harvested. The only real issue though is that they were usually located in the highlands, which of course is on the other side of the map from here. We could make a raft. Raft could be the move. All things considered, the raft was really my only option, so I got to work on making it. I then picked up a bunch of fiber from the bushes and started crafting narcotics and chopping trees for wood. Ooh, raft. And since I would be sailing across the 7 seas, I no longer had to stay here by Tyrannogoon, so I picked up everything and whistled Flappy and then ran up to the water to get set up. Boom, let's go to the highlands, get some keratin so I can make this man a saddle. Also, the highlands should be pretty safe. Maybe I can tame a horse, some veggies, some metal, sit back and relax. As I exited the bay through the surprisingly small exit, I soon spotted witchcraft happening in the ocean up ahead. What? Why is he out of the water? Okay, this is pretty controversial, but I kind of like the white cliffs. A lot of people don't. I think they make the map look good. A little bit of sailing later, I hit what seemed to be an invisible border, and not just in one direction. There's just invisible barriers. I don't understand. Like, what? Yeah, perhaps the map wasn't as polished as I expected, or I was straight up just not allowed to pass for some reason. So the sail over to the Highlands was not gonna happen after all. Instead of going back in the Viking Bay, I'm gonna sail around this way, see if we hit any invisible borders this time. While I may not have sailed in any borders just yet, I did almost hit a rock that literally popped into existence right in front of me. What? Rock just spawns? Okay. Eventually though, I decided to try and park under this little rock formation, and while doing so, Flappy decided to abandon ship prematurely. Oh, what? Whatever. You know what, he's fine like that. I actually stopped here because I wanted to go out and find Meganoras, so I quickly stopped back up on Bolas and headed inland. You know what, there's the lava golem cave up here. Not that I want to do the lava golem, it's just there's bugs in there. Thankfully, I didn't need to go into that cave since I ran straight into some buggy boys. I popped an arrow into each one of their faces and started swinging my hatchet everywhere as their corpses were nearly impossible to find in this grass. Dang, okay, that's all I needed. So I started heading back down to the beach, and now I could actually get back to focusing on getting levels. I would most likely just farm up cooking pots again to power level myself to level 38, and once I had a Pteranodon saddle unlocked, I could fly around the map looking for a more permanent base spot to settle at. I want a place with a view and a lot of land. There's a new boss for Ragnarok. I don't even know how to say its name. It's a dragon though. I know I'm gonna need some strong creatures. Anyhow, the leveling process started in an unprovoked murder. And dodos were not the only dinos on the menu. I need hide. Sorry, potential parry. The sword is actually really good at chopping up potential parry. Enough of depleting innocent creatures' lives though. I dragged the cooking pot engram onto my hotbar and I locked in on getting those crafted. This is moving so slow because I just can't find rocks to harvest. The last 2 levels before level 38, I actually finished another milestone, being Harvest 1000 Stone. And interestingly enough, I actually had to do this twice. The first milestone section also had the same exact objective. Anyways, I grinded out the last few cooking pots, putting me up to level 38, so of course I unlocked a PT saddle. Fiber and hide, okay. And some hide conveniently walked right up into my field of view, so I pulled out my machete and started swinging. I then picked all the fiber that I would need and went out to find some more easy prey, such as a lystro and a dodo. Boom, PT saddle. Day 4, not bad. Alright, Flappy, time for you to actually get to work and flying me around. I had to get rid of a few things as I was a bit on the heavy side, but now I could fly on day 4, earlier than I anticipated to be honest. And as planned, I wanted to fly around the map for a bit and to find that perfect base spot with a nice view and a lot of flat land. Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to get crystal for a spyglass too. Now, from a bird's eye view, Viking Bay looked magnificent. I flew up top to that rock pillar thing there, but sadly there was no crystal there anymore. It did, however, look much better than the ASE one as it was lush and pretty flat. Overall, not a bad place to build at. Unfortunately though, not big enough for what I needed, but it was still cool. This thunderstorm looks cool. I know this is new. Whoa, that looks, okay, yeah, that looks sick. The search for crystal continued into day 5. I could vividly remember some being in this general area back on ASC, but I was actually having trouble finding it here on ASA. There used to be crystal in here on ASC. Where'd it go? Oh, spotted. It was only 3 little nodes and I still had a primitive pickaxe, so I just crossed my fingers and whacked them all up. That's tough. No crystal at all. Ooh, that sucks. Okay. So back to looking for more. I started flying towards the canyon and I noticed a whole new side of the map. The small islands on my right were not so small anymore. Oh, hey. Just landing here for stamina, don't mind me. Anyways, I soon arrived at the canyon and the area looked much better. The rocks that were barren in ASC were now filled with trees and bushes, making the whole place feel a lot more alive. Griffins. Man, really want those? Not in the position to tame them though. Not at all. Those are hard tames. I flew to the top of the big pillar and I found myself a small pond but no crystal. This could be a potential contender for a base spot though, as it had a view and plenty of space. I'm gonna fly more inland though, towards the canyons. I really just don't know Ragnarok that well because I never liked it on ASC. But this ASA iteration was really starting to grow on me, not gonna lie. Even though I've only seen a fraction of the map and there was still so much to explore. Okay, this looks so cool, dude. There's no way I don't build somewhere in here. I just had to find some pillar, rock, or some type of formation that was flat enough to build a base on. There used to be crystal in here. Yeah, there is. Even though I barely played this map in the old Ark, I still had some knowledge of resources. Unfortunately though, said resources are not guaranteed to drop when using primitive cutlery. Alright dude, I guess I have to make a metal pickaxe if I want crystal. That's crazy. And as I was flying away from the canyons, the sky turned into a red storm, which looked really cool as well. I then started heading towards the triple waterfall, which I of course had to check out in depth. Hello? Entrance? No? It kind of looks like they got rid of it. That's weird. I then flew back to the middle waterfall once again to make sure, and I actually found the entrance a bit higher up than I expected. Oh, no, okay, it is here. Oh, they decorated it. The added greenery, the skylight at the top, and the glowing crystals gave this cave a new breath of life, and it made it a really strong contender in base spots. However, there was one really big flaw that would surely get annoying as time passed. It's just that waterfall is kind of loud. This would be cool if the waterfall wasn't so loud. After exiting the cave, I headed towards the castle, but my American senses started tingling a little bit too hard, so I looked down to find the taxman's dream. Oh my god, the taxpayers, and they're huge. They're huge dams, bro. I'm so building over here I'm constantly looting them. They need to pay their taxes, dude. The sheer amount of volume of tax I could be able to collect here by basing in the local area was all the convincing that it took for me to decide that I'm settling over here, dude. And this plateau in front of the castle looked good, but it was a little too big to start off on. So I flew up to the nearby mountains, and I found a cave-like entrance to a really cozy looking area. Oh my god, the Dinotherium's in here. This is so cool. Dude, I want to build in here. This is cool. There was a ton of metal in there, natural lighting, and it could also be really easily defended with just a couple of gates. I don't know, I kind of want to keep this though because there's so much metal. I could still build near this cave though, and I could gather metal from there regularly. I think this right here might be the move. I think it has to be, dude. Crazy view, plenty of space. This is it. This is home. Now, with a nice and flat area to work with, I decided this would be the spot of spots. The view spoke for itself, and I was also close to important resources being free taxes, also known as cementing paste and of course metal. So it was time to start farming up the basics for a base. However, the trees had this weird feature of being made up in my mind. Invisible trees. Yeah, it looks like Schizophrenia had an update and made it to Ragnarok as well. Eventually though, I found a dead tree that I could harvest, but that gave me nowhere near enough wood to build anything. So I flew down the cliff to try and chop up more trees. These ones weren't ghost trees, but I still couldn't harvest them for some reason. Alright, this is an issue. What about these? Are these harvestable? No. Why are none of these trees harvestable? Yeah, the last thing I expected to keep me from being able to build somewhere were indestructible trees, but I had to look for a different spot nonetheless. Anyways, I flew back over to where I saw the giant beaver dams, and I tried to smack one of the trees over there. These are. So I landed on the little mountain close to the triple waterfall, and the trees here could actually be harvested, so I decided I would set up camp here. It might have not been the best base spot, but at least I wouldn't have to deal with those schizo trees. So I placed down a row of thatch foundations, unlocked the forge, smithy, and metal tools, and then flew up to see what I was working with. So there's only one way up here. I can secure that with the gate and build some like castle wall type things. While it might have not been the most spacious of hills, it definitely made up for in terms of how easy it was to defend. And there was also a little water vein as a bonus. I'm gonna go back towards Viking Bay, farm up a bunch of hide, then I'll come back out here. I just want to get a griffin as fast as possible, man. They're so strong. Now, speaking of hide, there was a wild parasaur just minding his own business just below me, so I landed by it to introduce myself. Or my blade, I should say. The taxpayers also filled up the rivers and ponds, and these were also prime spawning grounds for parasaurs, so I could stock up on hide in no time. That's enough hide for what I need for right now. So I flew back up to start setting up, but my screen started turning red again, and this time it was not that cool looking. Why is it so red? This is like really red. It's like hurting my eyes. Oh! Anyways, I'm gonna keep making my forge. It ain't gonna stop me. World could be ended. I'm making my forge. With said forge crafted, I slapped it down and started cooking up some metal. I smacked this node a few more times just to get a little more, as I needed it to make a smithy for the metal pickaxe. Boom. Now just like that, I upgraded the pickaxe to metal, and I also placed my mortar and pestle and the campfire down before the end of the day. Now that I have a metal pickaxe, I'm gonna farm even more metal and just, have the smelting while I'm doing other things. And just as I finished up smacking up a metal node, I completed the second stone farming milestone. Oh, harvested more stone. Looks like I'm good at doing that. Basically, dude, I really just want to speed run. I want a griffin so bad. Wait, I have a metal pickaxe. Let's go get crystal. I want a griffin so bad though. I want an imprint one. You guys don't understand. I flew back to the central pillar in the canyon, swam down to the crystal, and I got more than enough of it. There we go. There's crystal.
Give me the crystal.
Alright, I don't know what that was. Don't mind that. And as I was flying back to base, the sky started throwing a rave again. At first, it started to get darker, but then it all turned red again. Too red, that is. Anyhow, I made it back to the crib and crafted a spyglass and then repaired my crossbow.
The good thing about griffins is that you don't need saddles to ride them. Bad thing is, they're really hard to tame.
A trap was basically a necessity since their torpor drains really fast and you have to have narcotics on standby. So I quickly checked the levels of the griffins that were flying around my mountain. One of them was level 95, which wasn't terrible. But before I get completely sidetracked by the fluffy skyline, I had to secure my base spot a little. For now, I would keep it as just a simple gate with some spikes around it, so I got to chopping down a few trees and whacking up a couple of rocks. I also grabbed just a bit of metal from my forge before going down the path where my entrance would be. I first had to clear the area of any rocks to place the gate down. A few bushes later, I crafted 2 spike walls and placed them on either side of the gate.
Boom. Right, so I've got my little mountaintop here sealed off. Now I'm gonna venture down there. I'm gonna tame me a berry harvesting.
That being said, I loaded on my crossbow and took off on Flappy to look for the chosen berry. Or that was the plan at least, until a level 145 Pteranodon crossed my spyglass.
Oh my god, a 145 PT. Okay, hold. And it looks sick.
Now you might think me missing the bolo was a skill issue, but in reality it was all part of my master plan. As if I were to bolo that PT, it would probably get munched down by a nearby Carno that I heard. There was a lot of chaos going on in these woods, but I did see another griffin fighting a bear, and it turned out to be a level 150. If you didn't know, that's max level.
It's fighting a bear though, I might die.
Yeah, the one downside to wild griffins is that they aggro onto literally anything. They really aren't big fans of anyone walking around in their personal space. But anyways, I'm here for the level 145 PT right now, and seeing as the area was swarming with all sorts of dangerous creatures, I just decided to go back to base. There, I picked up my 2 spike walls so I could farm up a couple extras so I could protect the PT once it's out.
Hello?
Once back, I waited for the Pteranodon to land and I immediately bulleted it and knocked it out.
Okay, now to acquire prime.
You know that Carno I heard before? Yeah, it was laying dead on the ground. So I accepted the humble offering and got 3 prime, which I actually needed.
Hello?
And I knew exactly why I placed spikes around the PT. Also, why is it that Dilos always try to cause the most harm even though they're tiny and useless?
He hit the PT. He spit through the spikes and hit it.
It only lost about 2% of the taming effect of this note, so it was no big deal.
Why is it pink? I genuinely don't get it.
Anyways, while waiting for the PT to tame, I took off to look for that 150 Griffin. But instead, I found a level 95 Parasaur, so 1 bola and 4 chunks later, he was slumped. So of course, I gave him some Meho berries to munch on. He will be my parry, whether he likes it or not. Anyways, I also unlocked the saddle engram and flew back towards base to make one.
I'm gonna take care of this.
Don't worry, I was not here to save the Phiomia though. As soon as the raptors died, I shot the piggy as I always need more hide. I made the Parasaur saddle on day 7 and I flew over to the PT as it was about to tame.
Alright, bro. Idiot.
I named him Tiger since he kinda looked like the tiger from last video, and his stats were already better than Flappy's, so I slapped the saddle onto him and I went over to pick up the Parasaur as well.
Get these boys back to base. Oh, I gotta name this guy Perry. What am I doing? Why is he running like that? Why are you bobbing and weaving through trees? Nice AI, dude.
I whistled Perry up to the little path that leads up to the top of the hill, but I then decided to just jump on him and go up manually since he is not the brightest.
Oh, we are so back.
I closed the gate and replaced the spikes. Now, back at my little crafting station, I first spoiled a bunch of meat in preparation for a griffin tame, and also I crafted a second forge. I unlocked a sickle and crafted one of those as picking fiber by hand was no longer optimal. And after restocking on bolas, I flew down to end another Phiomia's existence just as the meat was about to spoil.
Oh, hello.
A Dodic this early on would come in really handy to construct my grand estate.
Let me get some more meat to keep spoiling. I'm gonna start farming a ton of narco berries. Don't know why I said it like that. That was weird.
That was the plan at least, until I spotted that level 150 Griffin again. So I decided that the best course of action would be to farm up a little Griffin trap, get it inside, and then tame it once I got the capacity to do so. So I unlocked a stone foundation and ceiling engrams, and I got to work on gathering all the resources. While whacking away at a rock, I got ambushed by a pesky little thief. Unfortunately though, for the little bro, I do not let such crimes slide so easily. So of course he paid with the price of his life. I then continued the grind, but soon enough another little rat showed up, this time to harass Tiger.
Hello.
But no worries, an arrow to the head gave the Pego a quick system reset, and after which he realized he could actually fight back, but it was a bit too late for retaliation.
Alright, I don't believe griffins can fit through double doors, so that's gonna be the goal.
Anyways, I then farmed up the rest of the walls in peace. I then returned back home to drink up as I was more than a bit thirsty. I then made a second mortar and pestle and I hopped on Perry to go and gather narco berries so I could have narcotics cooking in the meantime. And while mowing the grass, I noticed a yellow drop with a ring just below my hill. So after finishing up that and throwing throwing all the berries into the mortar and pestle, I hopped on Tiger and flew down to check it out.
Yeah, that's really disappointing, to be honest. Whatever.
That small distraction aside, I continued getting berries till nightfall. And I also remembered to make the single most essential piece of furniture for every home.
Well, before I do anything else, I'm making a bed.
The bed is always the one thing that I forget in these challenges, and it usually costs me a lot of time and sanity, so remembering to place one down now would definitely save me a headache later on. I repaired my hatchet on day 8 and I flew back to farm up the dino gate and ceilings for the griffin trap.
Alright, I have the trap made pretty much. Let's try and get this thing trapped. I'd really like to trap it, at my base.
A bit of a bold and risky move, but if I could manage to do it, I would have the peace of mind that the griffin wouldn't get clapped by a random bear. So I hopped on Tiger to go and check on the griffin before coming back to set up the bird cage. And as planned, I used double door frames as the walls, and I placed the gateway down, and I then moved Flappy and Perry away from the cage to make sure that the griffin wouldn't aggro to them.
Alright, man, this is risky, but let's do it.
I made sure Tiger's stamina was topped up before going in for the introduction.
See, they have genders now that they're breedable. This is a male.
But for now, all that mattered was that I was getting a level 150 griffin. So I lined up for the trap, flew in, tanked a couple of hits, but I slapped the gate down behind us, securing the griffin.
Got it. Got it. Yes! Oh my god, dude, I have a 150 griffin trapped on day 8. Yes! That is so awesome.
And as you can probably tell, I was really hyped to be able to tame a griffin again. These 4-legged eagle things are by far my favorite flyer in the game. They can carry a decent amount of weight, but more importantly, they can glide through the air at incredible speeds. So it wouldn't take half a decade to Uber across the map on the back of like any RG or PT.
Now narcotic farm.
And a big narcotic farm at that. Griffins tend to need an absurd amount of trank arrows to not only knock out, but keep asleep as well. So that being said, I hopped back on Perry and the epic lawn mowing session ensued. I even had to venture outside the confines of my base to get even more bushes. And I also stopped by a green drop not too far off the path, and inside I found some free cooked fish meat, crystal, and liquid freedom.
Hey, really good drop.
I mean, how could a proud American such as myself ever say no to some free oil? Now, speaking of free things, I got rudely interrupted by a couple of buggy boys, so I quickly turned them into free chitin.
I think this will be enough narco berries.
I did smack up a few extra bushes just on my way back up the hill, but when I made it back to the crib, I split all the berries into my mortar and pestles. I also had a bunch of narcotics made from previous farming session runs, so I turned all those into trank arrows.
Alright, I want to go down and kill some baby dinos just for prime that I can spoil for more spoiled meat. And I also want to bring a dodo back up here, and I'm going to kill it and leave it as a dead body and feed it to the griffin like midway through the knockout process, because I'm not taking any chances of this thing dying, bro.
And one dodo sacrificed in the name of progress is completely reasonable. So I flew down into the Viking Bay to find the chosen culprit. And on day 9, I executed the chosen dodo, then brought its corpse over to be the sacrificial feed.
Eat the body, dude. Good boy.
Clearly he didn't like my rage bait as he started tweaking out right after.
Oh, chill.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was trying to do, but I gently kept inserting tranks until it fell on the floor unconscious.
Boom. Out.
I ran up to see just how quick the torpor actually drained, and I fed him a few narcotics before taking off to find some free prime meat.
Like a baby Fiomia would be perfect right now.
I did find a baby dino, but it was a level 95 dodo, which would take some time to kill, so I continued looking for something else.
Baby Diplo.
I started whacking away at it until I got yeeted by the mother and jumped by a microraptor simultaneously. And after getting yeeted for the second time, I noticed my good friends the beavers started fighting the microraptor for me, so I could get back to trying to kill the chubby Diplo child. I say trying because I got thrown straight at a Carno, meaning I had to dip.
Fight the beaver, dude.
After successfully passing the threat onto the taxpayers, I returned back to harass the baby Diplo, and this time I was finally able to kill it, so I quickly flew back to the griffin to feed him.
Just gonna stick around base, make sure this thing does actually tame. Meantime, I guess while I'm just around here, let's farm resources.
I first dropped a few trees to fuel my forges, then got to actually farming some metal. Now once that was cooking, I took a step back to relax and take in the beauty of this map.
The view from this base is crazy, dude. Looks so good. Oh yeah. I am not really regretting picking here at all. This looks so good.
Anyways, I farmed up all the other metal nodes on my hill and continued babysitting.
So excited for this thing to tame, dude. You guys have no idea badly I've missed griffins. Just gonna wait for this to tame, then we're gonna go probably tame an RG. I'm just gonna take some stuff from this trap. RG, get a saddle and an Anki. We'll set up the base better.
As the griffin was nearing its last feed, I could go and fly around the area on Tiger without having to worry about it waking up. However, Ark soon proved me wrong. Not by magically waking up the griffin, but by straight up making it vanish into thin air.
What?
I quickly checked the tracking list to see that it was still taming, but it was definitely not inside the trap. Thankfully though, after a quick relog, its invisibility potion wore off and spared me a heart attack. Now finally, while waiting for it to wake up, I thought of a few different names, but in the end, this one was the winner.
Yes. Toast. Hello, Toast.
I noted his stats for later, and I brought Toast out into the sunlight for a test drive.
So not that fast, it's flying like this, right? But as soon as you start swooping, man, I miss these things. But as you can see, it shreds through stamina.
That of course could be solved by leveling. Speaking of melee on this thing, it wasn't the greatest, but even then I swooped down on a raptor and dealt over 600 damage in one swing.
Toast, we are gonna have some fun, dude. I'm gonna take over Ragnarok. Me and you, bro.
I had to level up stamina as soon as possible though. Luckily though, I did remember an alpha raptor that I saw on one of the pillars near the canyon, so of course I flew over to kill it.
This thing is gonna have a lot of health.
But the alpha raptor was completely powerless to the dive attacks from Toast, so it was only a matter of time before it collapsed. It did actually take a while to take down though, and it actually ended up roaming over to a second alpha raptor, and considering my luck, it would also be the opposite gender. But killing them both would get me all the levels that I would need to make Toast a formidable griffin. So of course, I continued swooping down on them all day into day 10.
Finally, I got the 95.
I landed for stamina and looked into my inventory where I found a Mastercraft crossbow with almost 200% damage, and the other alpha raptor was also really low. So one dive bomb later, it died, and that gave me a ton of levels and a nice new pickaxe.
1700 stamina. That weight's good. Outfit pickaxe. Another good. Nice, man. That's really nice.
I also unlocked the RG saddle engram before gliding back to the crib.
Let's deconstruct this trap a little bit as I need some of the stuff. Might as well just take it all down.
I made even more narcotics, unlocked the flak armor set, and I gathered some fiber to actually craft it. I then transferred all the prime meat from Toast over to my inventory so I could spoil it faster. Now once it did, I took off on Toast to go and cop up a couple of yellow drops that I spotted in the distance.
Okay, well I'll take better flak.
Now the second drop even had a ring, and was being guarded by a couple of raptors. Anyways though, inside I found some metal structures, a scuba tank, and flippers. Not the best yellow drop I've seen, but the scuba might actually come in handy later on. Anyways, I flew back home to place down the metal elevator things, and demolishing them actually hooked me up with a bunch of metal and a few electronics.
Oh, holy resources. Oh, that's nice.
Now the next plan on the agenda was of course to tame an RG, but before doing that I wanted to make some cryopods. So I grabbed all the necessary resources minus the polymer, as I could get that by killing a mantis or two over in the volcano.
Go get some organic poly.
So I flew over to the desolate ashy mountains where I soon spotted a lonely mantis wandering about. I wanted to get just a little more polymer, so I killed a couple more mantises, but I also ran into a creature I was really hoping that wouldn't be featured on this map.
Oh my god, there's pie remains. Of course, Ark needs to get their money, dude.
Anyhow, I had enough poly now, so I headed out to the blue obelisk to get the cryos crafted.
An attack. Holy artifact in tribute farm for any of them. That is absurd. Oh jeez, that's something for sure. Future problem for future me. Big problem for future me. Let's go tame an RG. One thing at a time.
Yeah, these requirements were a bit too much, but I wouldn't let that knock me off course. So anyways, I flew out to another yellow drop with a ring, and I watched as it got delivered straight into the mesh.
Bro, please tell me I can open this. Really?
At the very least, I got blessed with a level 140 RG straight away, so I landed on a nearby pillar to construct the trap. I then assaulted the RG's personal space, and of course that made it very angrily chase me back into the trap. Now the RG's little cousin was also not a fan of this abduction, and he started beef with Toast.
Alright, Toast, come here, bro.
Now just as I was about to end the RG's whole family lineage, I noticed one of them was a level 145. Now the one I had trapped was a female, and this 145 was a male, so that meant I could tame both of them and get a breeding pair. Having an imprinted RG would be really nice. I led the family of RGs away, and I returned to trank out the 140 female off the back of my griffin. Since it was getting a bit bloody, I brought another RG above the trap and smacked it a few times, killing it right above the level 140.
Oh, perfect. Harvest that. Oh, dude, you know you want to.
With a little bit of help from me, she bit the corpse and started regenerating, so I could safely force another trank arrow into her.
Boom.
Now, before feeding this one, I actually wanted to trap the other high level as well, and I wanted to do it in the same trap. Crazy idea, I know, but I'm going for it regardless. So I picked up the front two door frames, and I found the male RG that has gone off on a little adventure.
How'd you get down there, man?
I slowly kited him back up to the trap, but he kept losing aggro before going in. So I hopped off Toast and I hit the RG with a trank arrow. And as soon as it flew into the trap, I placed down both of my walls, but I ended up missing one of the placements.
This is awkward.
Anyways, I picked one of the door frames on the bottom and replaced it behind the RG, sealing him in the trap.
And this RG's blocking it from flying that low. These guys are like the exact same colors too. This is kind of weird.
Anywho, I knocked it out, and now I could actually clap the other RGs in the area for prime meat.
I'm gonna fly over to this new piece of land over here. They added this whole new castle here. This is cool.
As I got closer to check out the castle, a couple of poison wyverns popped up, so I guess I won't be inspecting it up close after all.
Okay, never mind, not checking out that castle.
Going over to the bigger island, I found a new creature added to Ragnarok.
Oh, it's the new bison. I don't know anything about them. Definitely watch a video or something. How strong can they really be, man? They're just like big cows.
They did have a baby bison though, so I swooped at it a couple of times to get a bunch of prime meat for my RGs. Anyways, I then flew back and fed the sleeping couple, and I waited for them to both wake up mine.
That's my first RG. Not gonna name these things, so I'm just gonna breed them and get an imprinted baby.
After the second RG woke up, it also got sentenced to hibernation in my right pocket, so I could head back to base. Now, when I arrived, I threw one of the RGs out, grabbed some chitin, hide, and fiber, and then made the saddle for it. I also tested out my new pickaxe on a few metal nodes scattered around the hill. Anyways, once my cryo timer was up, I threw the female out as well and then bred the two. I checked the baby stats and I compared the two parents, but unfortunately it only got the good health and not the stamina and weight, so I turned it into a snack for toast. That being said, I bred the RGs again on the morning of day 12. And while they did their thing, I chopped up a couple of metal nodes to keep my forges occupied, and when the egg dropped, of course, I hatched it. Once again, only the good health transferred over to the child. So in turn, I helped transfer the child onto the next world. Now the next egg produced twin baby RGs, and these ones had the good weight and stamina, however, they lacked the health stat.
I don't have the good health. I really want the good health. I'll stop until I get the good health and good weight. That's what I want.
So the spawn camping continued. The next baby had all the bad stats, and the one after that was only missing the weight. Anyways though, the following egg finally popped out an RG with the good health and weight. It didn't get the stamina, but honestly, I don't care. It wasn't as important as the two other stats. So anyways, I named the little guy Bird. I then stopped the breeding on the parents, and of course, I fed Bird to keep him alive. I then waited for imprint. He wanted to go on a walk, so I whistled him and got him fully imprinted with just one go around. Now, while waiting for him to grow up, I got on Perry to farm some narco berries, as I would always be in need of more tranking power. And I also smacked up a couple of metal nodes I keep respawning pretty frequently before getting slightly distracted.
Oh, red drop with a ring?
You guys already know I cannot pass up on such an opportunity, so I immediately flew over and waited for it to land. Hopefully this one would actually hit the ground instead of burying itself into the mesh.
Are we serious? Wildcard, please fix this. It just goes into the ground.
Unfortunate, but expected. So anyways, I returned back home where Bird was now fully grown, so I saddled him up and flew downhill to conduct some business with the locals. My part of the deal was of course experience to level up Bird, and as for their part, well, they had to die. I didn't get the XP for that kill since the bear got the last hit, but at least I could get something else that's valuable for free.
Hello, taxpayers. I can now hold a lot of weight, so I will be robbing you.
Robbing is just a funny way to say collect mandatory tax. One beaver dam I opened actually hooked me up with a decent amount of paste, so I brought that back to base along with all the wood, which would come in handy later. Then after depositing all that, I returned to try and level a bird again. I spotted a stego fighting for its life against a carno, so I decided to stop by just in time to get impaled by its tail slash attack. Now this made my RG's health drop by quite a bit, and it almost completely drained my stamina, so I distanced myself a bit. The stego, however, didn't let that slide though, and it wanted all the smoke, so I quickly put it back in its place. The killing, however, didn't end here though. When I returned back home, the metal rocks were back, so I mined those up before crafting a handful of tranks.
Time to look for an Anki. I know there is a Dodic right down here, right? Yeah, I might as well tame that. Let me just construct a trap up here base. I'll just drop it in with my RG. The nice thing about imprint is that you fly a little quicker. Not much, but it is nice.
I yoinked the level 90 Dodic and dropped him into the trap on the first try. I then dropped the Dodic into the trap on the first try. Okay, maybe the stone ball was just too fat to fit in the opening at the top, so I picked up one of the door frames and shot at the Dodic and then made it follow me in. This of course worked out, so I continued the tranking process.
You wanna go to sleep, boy? Oh, girl? Sorry.
She fell asleep on day 13, so I quickly hopped on Perry to get some mayho berries for her to munch on.
That guy is gonna take a little bit to tame, so I can go look for an Anki in the meantime.
I made just a few more narcotics before hopping on Toast to go on a surveillance mission.
I should bring my RG in a cryopod so I can fly it back to base and tame it.
That being said, I returned back to the crib for a quick pit stop. I picked up the trap and I crowed up Bird before resuming the search for an Anki. And I did consult my friend the search engine to see where the most common spawn point was for them. And these mountains seemed to be the best spot. But the combination of the fog and the rain was definitely not helping my search. So I used an advanced weather shifting method called relogging. The Despite clearing out the land and actually being able to see, there were still 0 Ankies in sight.
Yet to even see one Anki.
However, I did come across a purple drop with a ring, and inside I found an artifact pedestal, some decent fur armor, and some other junk.
Yeah, so maybe I'm not taming an Anki.
But I didn't give up just yet though. I flew over to the ashy side of the map as well as the big mountain near the castle. But surprisingly, I couldn't find any Ankies at all, let alone a high level. So I returned home and I got greeted by an uninvited guest. And just as I was about to end his career, the Dodic ended up taming, saving the fool's life.
Oh, what? Why did he just go from like 56 and why is he under the map? Really?
Anyways, in typical Ark fashion, my Dodic developed the habits of a mole and dug underground, meaning I had to gather my inner powers to do the same and retrieve him. Anyways, I then unlocked the saddle and named the Dodic Green Bean. Now, to make the saddle, I was only missing some fibers, so I got some with my sickle and crafted one. I then put Green Bean to use straight away by clearing out some of the rocks around the place to make space for my base and get the stone to actually build with it. So I first flew down to the forest to gather that, and the wood could easily be outsourced from my friends at the beavers.
Taxpayers.
I quickly set my sights on a giant beaver dam, and I strategically placed my RG out back for a quick exit. However, I didn't loot this dam just yet, as this Diplo would prove to be a problem during the escape, so I flew over to the other dam instead. I then looted it from the top, but it didn't get destroyed as there was more wood inside which I couldn't carry. So I was basically just forced to drop most of it so I can hop on bird and dip.
I just wasn't able to loot it all. Holy beavers, dude.
I would have to despawn it though, as leaving it there would just prevent new ones from appearing. On day 14, I grabbed the smaller dam and I returned to despawn the large one as well as grab all the dropped wood. Now, with all the resources farmed through sheer hard work, I flew back home to start crafting.
Got kind of a cool idea. Who knows how it'll turn out though.
I unlocked the wood pillar and ramp engrams, and gathered a little bit of fiber, and I crafted a bunch of pillars which turned into completing the crafting structure's milestone.
Boom. How are we doing on this? I never checked this. Oh, I have skill points. Okay. Gain 10% experience. Fierce repair item. Nah, that's not that good. Health generation.
And I decided to spend all 3 of my skill points on the hot-blooded skill, which boosted my passive health regeneration up to 300%. And unlocking this skill also opened up 2 new ones, being the heavy-footed one, which slightly reduces my fall damage, but also strikes the ground upon falling and knocking creatures back in a 10-meter radius. And the second one was called Bloodlust, and this one increased my movement speed for 5 seconds after killing something with a melee weapon.
I'll probably end up doing this experience killer thing next, so my mount gets more XP.
I also looked into the milestone page to see some of the upcoming objectives, and not gonna lie, some of them were pretty cursed.
Deal 750 damage with slingshots? What?
We're not even gonna talk about the 1500 damage with boomerangs.
Baby Whisperer? That's crazy.
Anywho, I wanted to test out my new super healing, so I got on bird and jumped off mid-air to take some fall damage.
Oh yeah, you heal super quick, but that also drains your food really quick. That's interesting. Didn't think about that.
Overall, an experience not worth breaking my kneecaps for. Anyways, back to cooking though. I had a base idea in mind, I just had to execute it and see how it would look in the end. So I further expanded my platform with a new row of foundations, and I made some wooden ceilings and ramps.
Maybe I didn't want to extend this. Really experimenting here.
Don't mind the poor baby RG corpse below the foundation either. We don't talk about those things here.
I think this might work. I'm not sure.
You guys can kind of see the idea behind what I'm cooking here, right? Anywho, I ran out of thatch, so I flew back down to get some more. A short journey that did complete the travel 1,000 meter milestone though. I then also visited the beavers again to claim another giant dam.
Dang, easy wood farm. So how can I make this? It just looks too like skinny and thin right now.
I slapped the other ramps down and I made some quarter ceilings to hopefully try and give it some more shape.
Does that look cool at all? Does that look stupid? No, I bet you that can look cool. Hold. I'm so cooking, dude. That actually looks a lot better. Are sideways pillars a thing?
I crafted one more pillar to see, and turns out there were short, thin, and sideways pillar variants. So I'm definitely gonna have to try those out. And these things were actually great for what I was building here, so I made more of them.
Oh my, am I cooking? Hold up. I'm actually like enjoying building for once. This is so cool.
Now crafting all these pillars shredded through my wood supply, so it's time to head back out and check on my tax-paying friends.
Too easy. Man, this map looks good, dude. Dude, Ragnarok might be my new favorite map. I did not like it on ASC, but man, does it look good now.
I made some more pillars and I finished the back support side of the crib.
Man, I'm actually like kind of proud of this build. It's not done by any means, but
I still had to add minor details like stairs and railings, so I farmed up even more thatch and fiber. I then crafted up a bunch of structures and I cooked hard.
Okay, you guys gotta admit, this looks so cool.
I placed the last couple of pillars and railings down, and I looked at the build from the back of Toast. It was likely not the finished product, but man did it look good. Waking up on day 15, I was right back to admiring the breathtaking surroundings of my home.
Man, this game looks good, dude. You know what this looks like? Looks like Skyrim. This has a striking resemblance to Skyrim. Looking out this way, this looks like Skyrim.
Enough glazing though, time to get to work. I made a few large storage boxes, and I placed them on the back foundations for convenience.
Zero chance I'm organizing though, that's for sure.
I wasn't going to organize the items, but the placement of my forges and other structures definitely needed an update. So I picked them up and replaced them off to the side. Now the campfire could go near the stairs, and I placed the bed down behind the smithy. I was, however, now running low on hides, so I hopped on Toast and we headed out to extract some. Forcefully, of course. I also opened up a blue drop, giving me a few narcotics and some other junk that I despawned. Now, back at base, I swapped my metal kicks out for some fur boots instead, as they were way better and this map had a colder climate in general. So I threw some meat onto the campfire before going back out to get more hide.
A drop over there. We'll try and check it out. I hope it's not in the murder snow.
It was definitely in the middle of the murder snow.
If you don't know what the murder snow is, it's just really cold, okay? That's all you need to know.
Hopefully the Ascendant fur crocs would help keep my body temperature in check though. Anyways, when I arrived, the drop was halfway buried into the mesh. Usual ASA stuff. Luckily though, I could actually access it, but the loot inside was still worthless, so I flew back home just to craft a couple more forges. I then picked up my 2 pre-existing forges, and I also had to remove the railings as they were kind of making the placement janky. Now with the forges down, I could replace the railings. I then brought Bird over to clear out his inventory and fuel up my forges with the wood. Speaking of it, I was running a bit low on it, so I had to get some delivered ASAP.
Go steal some more wood from beavers, and then still don't have an Anki, so I'm just gonna try and do a metal run with my pickaxe and RG.
To my surprise, the giant dams I looted have been reconstructed. Looks like the beavers have been hard at work to fuel my progress, so of course I grabbed all of their belongings. And as planned, the next objective was the mass farming of metal. The addiction was calling, and I didn't have an Anki to pick up the phone, so my pickaxe would just have to cut it for now. I flew over to that smaller cave that I was considering building at earlier, as I knew I could find a bunch of metal in there.
This is already driving me insane, dude. I have to tame an Anki. I'm not farming metal like this.
On that note, I left the cave and returned back home to split the metal into the forges. With those cooking again, I hopped on Toast and I started flying around in hopes that I could find a good Anki. Flying around in the snowy mountains was a bit too chilly for me though, so I flew back home to grab my fur chest piece first. On day 16, I headed back out, and not even a minute into the search, I actually spotted the first culprit.
Oh, 60. 55. No, you guys are dying.
When I looked back, I spotted 2 ice wyverns circling the snowy mountain above, and they had a nest below them with a fresh egg, so I spyglassed both of them to see their level. One was a pathetic level 15, but the other was a level 150. It was actually a decently good level for a wyvern, considering they go all the way up to level 190.
I definitely want one of every wyvern.
Anyways, for now the focus was the Anki though. And speaking of, I actually found the perfect little worker. Voluntary worker, of course.
I'm just gonna, this guy's close to base. I'm just flying back to base with this guy.
I deployed the almighty bird, shoved Toast into my pocket, and I took off with the Anki. Back at base, I dropped it off and tranked it out, also while making sure not to get thrown off the cliff.
Ooh!
And once it hit the ground, I got some mayho berries with Perry, and I fed the sleeping tank. Now, while that tamed, I went over to grab a yellow drop near my base, and that gave me a whole 23 organic polymer.
What do I need for an Anki cell?
Fiber and hide was the answer. Hide being the shorter end of the supply though, so I had to go out there and clap some innocent creatures for it.
Alright, you know what I need to do in the meantime? Level up my RG. This guy's gonna take a while to tame. I'm gonna put him in a cryopod, and I'll fly around on the griffin till I find something.
I did remember a ton of Spinos spawning down in the canyon, so that's where I was headed.
Man, this place looks so cool. Oh, you know what gives a ton of XP? Wyverns. Zero chance I'm killing those though. On the RG at least.
Speaking of wyverns, I flew back to see where I saw the ice wyvern couple, and I wanted to see if I could actually steal their egg. The mountain was seriously cold though, making me freeze even through my fur. Anyways, I flew up above the wyverns and I challenged the Lolo to my mortal combat by swiping Toast's massive claws through its hide. The dogfight ended really quickly though. Griffins are just built different, and wyverns stand no chance against them.
This wyvern is just waiting for you to try and take its egg.
Unfortunately for that wyvern, that's exactly what I was about to do. I swooped down into its nest so fast that its radars didn't even spot me. The egg was only a level 15, but I grabbed it nonetheless, a learning mama wyvern in the process. But it was a bit late for that though, as I could just glide away gracefully, completely leaving it in the dust.
Eat that since it's level 15. I don't even care for wyverns, dude. Now that you can imprint griffins, they're just gonna be so much stronger.
Back to looking for alphas though. I flew over to the green obelisk where I saw a yellow drop coming down, so I waited while healing up my griffin. Inside the drop, I found a crafted journeyman Anki saddle. Pretty clutch considering I had an Anki taming. I also got some more polymer and a flak chest piece. Now continuing the map exploration, I soon arrived at the second main wyvern spawning grounds.
So back here, there's like a wyvern cave. There used to be here on ASE, but apparently it got like remodeled. Oh, yeah, a lot bigger of an entrance.
A pretty cool change overall. Anyways, I also flew over to the desert, which I'm yet to visit.
Desert looks about the same. Way less red than it used to be.
On day 17, I started heading back home, a journey that guided me through the previously mentioned murder snow.
Murder snow, oh my god. Negative 86.
Yeah, it was just a bit chilly, so I flew right past it and back to base. Shortly after my arrival, the Anki woke up, and since it was a girl, I gave her the cool female counterpart of the name, Hank.
Hankette.
Hankette also got dripped out with a journeyman saddle before her first mission.
Alright, man. Time to feed my addiction from real metal farming. This RG still needs way better weight.
The leveling up without explore notes is not that easy. Anywho, I carried Hankette over to a bunch of metal nodes and we got to work. The Anki was already proving itself by outclassing the pickaxe over tenfold, so I satisfied the urge for farming metal in a reasonable amount of time. And then on my way back to base, I stopped by a yellow drop that supplied me with some grade A gasoline, silica pearls, and a few metal structures. Overall, a pretty good drop compared to the other yellow drops that I've been getting. Now back at base, I unloaded the copious amounts of metal that I farmed and split it all into the forges.
These boys gonna be burning for a while.
There was one little flaw with the base though, and that was causing my OCD to drive me nuts, so of course I had to fix it.
This smithy is making me mad that it's meshed into the pillar.
I grabbed everything and threw it into bird for the time being. I then picked up the smithy and replaced it along with the mortar and pestles.
I want a fabricator.
I then cooked up some spark powder, unlocked canteens, and crafted the fabricator, which I placed next to the smithy.
What? Hello?
On the second try, that is. Anyhow, I already had gas from that yellow drop, so I grabbed that along with a few other resources and fired up the fabricator to make a few canteens.
Hello. Not here to pay my taxes just yet.
Although pretty soon I would.
I got an idea. So I'm gonna need so many artifacts. I gotta collect so many to do the boss. Doesn't matter, you gotta collect all of them for Gamma, Beta, or Alpha. So I'd like to set up a cool place to display them. I think I need either 8 or 10. I think I need 10. I want to create like a separate little platform where I can display these.
It was time to get back to cooking again. I picked up one of the railings and I placed a few foundations out as the expansion. I then made a bunch more pillars and placed them down, and I realized I definitely needed to expand the platform a bit.
Time to go steal more wood.
The beavers had been hard at work, so the dams were once again there waiting for me. Now with my RG parked precisely, I could yoink everything and dip before they can even react to what just happened.
Too easy, boy, do I love this base location.
Anyways, back at the house, I unlocked and crafted a generator as well as the electronics for the fridge. I did run out of crystal though, so I'd have to go out and get that first. Anyways, I then placed a generator down out back. And on day 18, I expanded the future artifact pedestal room. I did have to use ceilings and some walls on the side as the ground was way too low for a foundation.
A whole bunch of pillars for what I want to do here. And I'm gonna need a whole bunch of thatch. Got the wood though.
Now with that farmed and the pillars made, I placed them all down around the new platform, and I made some extra ceilings and ramps.
Dude, why is my building so good?
And it was only getting better with the upcoming upgrades.
And then I believe I am cooking. Yeah, and then I'll put quarter ceilings out.
I farmed some fiber and thatch, and of course the wood, which I really worked hard for. For the top of the roof, I used a hatch frame to leave some natural lighting. I then made and placed some quarter ceilings down all around to add some more shape, and I added the horizontal pillars as well. As a last touch, I of course made railings, as you gotta have those in every build. Your build is not fire unless it contains a few railings here and there as decoration. Guaranteed 2025.
Boom, okay. I really like this.
Anyways, I grabbed the one artifact pedestal that I had and placed it before a pillar. I still had to grind out 9 more though, so I had to do a little bit of research on where I can actually find enough obsidian to farm all that. If you didn't know, artifact pedestals are really expensive.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that. There's definitely obsidian over by the volcano.
Anyways, I crowded up Hankette and started heading out towards said volcano. And I stopped by a purple drop to grab a free supply of trank arrows and some other random garbage.
Some nodes over here, but I want to go over to the actual volcano.
On day 19, I flew to where I believe the volcano would be located, but I couldn't see it around me.
Where's the volcano at? Fill it in, did they?
I did, however, find a bunch of obsidian rocks though, so I first cleaned the area by transporting an Arthro off the cliff, then threw Hankette out.
You want it?
And this scorpion had to learn that squaring up against Hankette was a terrible idea the hard way.
You know what? I can probably just craft the artifact pedestals in that RG's inventory since it acts as a smithy.
A feature I've most likely never used before, but actually came in pretty handy in this scenario. I made the 9 pedestals that I needed, pocketed up Hankit, and then headed back home.
Alright, so let's set these boys up. Boom. This would be cool. I'd like to, get an artifact in here. Let me do some research, see what artifact I might be able to get. I need to tame a Thyla.
After the brief research, I learned that most of the artifacts on Rag are actually pretty challenging to get, where some were as simple as just going into a cave and grabbing them.
There's a carnivorous cave not too far from me, and I'm pretty sure, 99% sure you can fly through it. Let's try it, man. Got a bed here just in case.
So I got on Toast and flew over to said cave. The entrance was located on the other side of the castle mountain facing the ocean.
So this used to be like the dark cave, dude. You could like not see anything inside of it, but I believe they changed it.
And change it they did. Instead of just a hollow cave filled with dark fog, it was now more lush and full of glowing mushrooms.
It's like aberrant.
And as I expected, I could actually fly inside. So I started looking for cracks in the ceiling as I remember the artifacts being up there. And yeah, I said artifacts because there's actually 2 of them in this cave. And pretty soon, I found one of them.
Oh, this looks right. I knew it.
The first one I found was the artifact of the cunning. And after grabbing it, I flew back down the hole that I came through and I started looking for the second one. I was not wrong about this cave reminding me of Aberration after all. The whole place felt like a maze to navigate, but eventually I stumbled into the other artifact.
Yes, got it.
Just like that, I secured the artifact of the immune as well. Now, with 2 of the easier to acquire artifacts of Ragnarok, I just had to get out of here. So I flew around in random directions until I spotted the sunlight at the end of the tunnel, which led me to the outside world but not through the entrance I initially went through.
Oh, I'm free.
Anyways, I then flew back home and I threw the first couple artifacts up for display.
Oh yeah, this was definitely a good idea. This looks cool.
I admired my spinny glowing relics for a minute, and when my consciousness kicked back in, I demolished the metal billboard that I found in the drop for some free metal. I also remembered that I wanted to make a fridge for which I needed crystals, so I transferred all the obsidian from Bird to a storage box and then headed out to find some with Toast.
Clearly there's gotta be a bunch of crystal in the volcano, right? There's some.
I got a bit underwhelmed by the 3 pieces of crystal that I could find, so I decided to go look elsewhere.
Alright, I know where to get crystal. Pretty sure. It's just on the other side of the map. Which kinda sucks.
About halfway through the journey on day 20, I spotted a decent cluster of crystals out in the open.
Oh, there's a bunch of crystal. That's not even what I was talking about, though.
Since I already set out on the journey, I decided to go all the way and find the exact spot that I was referring to, being the little cave behind the waterfall in the desert.
Yeah, oh my god. Holy crystal farm.
So I threw Hankit out and we started feasting. Now, with a whole lot of crystal farmed, I crowded up Hankit and Toast and then flew back home on the RG. Now, when arriving back at base, I took a short break IRL. Anyways, when I returned back, I forgot to hit record for a few minutes, but basically all I did was depot all the crystal from the bird and make the refrigerator. Moving on, the next resource that I needed to get was none other than oil. So I hopped on Toast and flew out over to the ice cave where I knew I could find a few oil rocks.
Got this oil for a grill that I want to make cooking food way easier.
That being said, when I returned back home, I made the industrial grill and I placed it next to the fridge, perfectly aligning it with my storage boxes. Now to actually get some meat to cook. I spotted a Diplo just below base, so I pieced it up and got some raw meat to throw on the grill.
Oh my... my eyes! Why is it so red?
Yeah, I'm still unsure why this guy threw a rave every once in a while, but it was really starting to feel like Ragnarok had beef with my retinas. On day 28, I headed out to a red drop with a ring. It was a bit far away, but with Toast, I got there before it could even land, so in the meantime, I checked the levels of the local griffin population.
Please don't go into the side of the cliff. Stop. Surely I can open this. Oh yeah.
And inside, I found Ascendant flak leggings, some riot gear, and a fabricated sniper.
That is some good armor.
Anyhow, I killed the other trash griffins, and I flew over to the canyon to see if I could find any potential tames there.
Hello.
This one was an 85 male. Definitely not what I was looking for, but it was getting better for sure. But after killing it, I aimed my spyglass at a random fairy just chilling below.
Alright, new goal. Let me go back to base and get a trap. Alright, so basically, I'm pushing this video out so fast. There's no guides on how to do the boss or anything, right? So basically what I've heard, or the current word on the street, is that fairies are the best move for the boss, even though the boss is super hard. So I don't really know. There could be a better strategy. Basically, since I'm pushing this video out so quick, I'm recording all of this so fast, just within a few IRL days of each other. Yes, I'm glued to my chair. Anyways, I've decided that I'm just gonna do fairies. Since the boss is rumored to do more damage to carnivores, I can get some good saddles, hopefully, for the fairies, and veggie cakes. Just kind of approach it the same way as a fire dragon. With the UD as well, of course. Maybe even throw a date on it.
So with that in mind, I got to crafting the trank arrows and grabbing a simple trap. But before leaving, I also got a few mayho berries with parries so I wouldn't have to worry about those later on. I then flew back to the 145 theory and I cleared out some space on the other side of the river and then placed down the trap. And leading it in was as simple as giving it a small love tap on the forehead and having it walk right in on the first try.
It's hard, that's a good sign. Oh,
Yeah, perhaps I had to move the opening to the side. Should be simple enough though as long as the structures aren't damaged.
did you not just damage the... Oh my god.
So a quick plan B it is. I farmed some wood, thatch, and stone to repair the trap, and just as I was about to go fix it, I spotted this fluffy guy flying above.
Whoa, dude, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
The best two tames I possibly could have asked for right now, both in the same place. So I've got to waste no time here. I've got to get that griffin trapped first. So I rushed back to base, grabbed my dino gate, and I picked up green bean for a little bit of overtime work. I also flew down to grab some thatch and stock up on wood that the beavers were kind enough to provide. I then crafted the second trap and cleared out my inventory and then grabbed tiger. I also made some trank arrows to make sure that I had more than enough to actually knock out the griffin. Anyways, I then headed back on toast. When I got back, I cleared some trees on top of a small pillar and set up the griffin trap on it. Now with that set up, I threw out my Pteranodon and cryoed up toast so I could lead the griffin in.
This is you, correct? Yep.
I logged the griffin in and took off to find something else small to sacrifice.
Just need a dodo, man. Compy works too.
I brought the compy back on day 22 and I chopped it up immediately to avoid it skedaddling somewhere.
Figuring this dude out. It has a slightly higher chance of dying with this stronger crossbow. That's why I have the body, so I'll be okay. Man, it is 1 a.m. and it is daylight out. What is going on?
Besides the questionable time zone of Ragnarok, I threw Toads back out and got to looking for some free source of Prime.
Baby Stego. And this level 15 could not get any better.
With the Prime meat now secured, I returned back to the Griffin. I then fed it both the meat and narcotics, and I picked up a couple of door frames for the Theory trap. I then repaired the damaged walls, picked up everything, but first I actually had to find the Theory as it's not here anymore.
Where's the Theory? Not have gone far, dude.
One circle around the pillar later, I spotted the big chicken. So I rebuilt the trap nearby and got inside on the first try, of course.
Bro, I think it's the ceilings.
So I borrowed 3 foundations from the Griffin trap and replaced one of the ceilings. And this time the Theory didn't have an issue walking right in. So I flew up to feed the Griffin some narcotics before returning back to knock out the Theory as well. Once it slumped over, I checked its stats to see the damage, but it was a little more than underwhelming.
Oh my god, this is terrible.
I just had to pray that I could find a high-level male with much better stats. So anyways, I fed it regardless and then repaired the trap.
I don't want to pick up the foundation in case it falls under the mesh, because I know I'm going to leave render.
When I flew back out to check on the Griffin, I was met with a similar disappointment in terms of stats.
Okay, basically this Griffin sucks. This Griffin is terrible, and Toast's better in every way.
So I bred the two, and after picking up the egg, I stuffed the new Griffin into my pocket, and I then came down to feed the Theory some more narcotics. Now, while that was taming, I returned back to the crib to incubate that Griffin egg, but unfortunately, the child popped out with the bad stats, so of course, I had to chop it up. Now, in the meantime, I unlocked the air conditioner engram, and made some electronics and one AC, which I placed just by the stairs. I then enabled mating on the Griffins again, and waited for the egg to drop. The baby that hatched had the same stats as the last one, so you already know what happened to it. Well, they say third time's a charm, so I threw out another egg on day 23. And as a matter of fact, the third time was indeed not the charm. Moving on, my forges have run out of fuel by now, so I quickly fired those back up before going back to check on the Theory. And it lost quite a bit of torpor, so I force-fed it a bunch of narcotics down its throat. Now, while flying back home, I stopped by a yellow drop, and inside I found some metal structures. It also had some gas and mutton, which could actually come in clutch when taming a Thyla. But for now, it was back to looking for a good baby Griffin. And thankfully, egg number 4 proceeded to be just that.
Okay. It just has 20 less weight. Otherwise, it's good. I'll take it. I can deal with 20 less weight.
So I fed the baby his lost brother's remains as you do in Ark and waited for the imprint timer.
Do a walk. You can easily do a walk, my man.
And the stats after the imprint were already looking better, but there is one thing I'm yet to do though.
Okay, so this guy's darker than Toast, but it is Toast's son, so burnt toast.
I hopped on regular toast to go out and get some more meat for this little guy, but the first thing I saw was another high level Theory just below my base.
Are you kidding me? A 130 just below my base? That's wicked. Wait, oh, it is a child. I'm gonna just kill it. And claim its kid.
It was a bit of a challenge to try and not kill the child while getting rid of its parent, but I got there in the end, and of course I claimed the baby.
It's a male. Oh, I needed it to be a female. This thing's terrible. I'm killing this. I didn't even check. I should have just tamed the mom. I'm an idiot.
So unfortunately, the child had to go as well. Anyways, I flew back to check on the sleeping Theory.
Might as well just stay out with this thing until it tames.
It took a little longer than expected, but the Theory did tame, so I looked at its stats again to see if it redeemed itself after the tame.
I think this is just mid, to be honest with you. I don't seem to be having a hard time finding high level Theories though, so I'm not too concerned.
By the time I got back home, Burnt Toast was nearly full grown. So anyways, this means Toast, his father, could retire after his good service to me.
Alright, Toast, you've served me well. It's time to get this guy out and about, though. Spend some time leveling this man up.
Burnt Toast very quickly proved himself by dishing out almost 1,000 damage in one swipe.
Oh, this is so good, dude. If I could find 2 Alpha Raptors again, that would so set me up.
For the time being, I set my sights on the Rexes and Brontos near the castle, as they were pretty easy to take down and gave a lot of XP as well. Plus, I would need to farm their tributes for the boss fight at some point, so it was a good idea to get started early on that.
That's all I wanted in life, dude. Imprinted Griffin. You guys have no idea how happy I am right now. Like, being on this thing makes me genuinely happy.
I then flew back to where I last saw those 2 Alpha Raptors, but there I spotted a big red sausage wandering about. Not a raptor, but an Alpha at last. Now, killing this Carno took a solid minute, but the XP in the end was definitely worth it.
Got it. 31 levels. Oh, ho, ho.
31 levels and a couple of Journeyman hatchets as a bonus. Overall, a really good investment. So I pumped up Burnt Toast stamina to about 2,000 and put the rest of the points into health.
This thing is gonna be a machine. I'll probably get to a little over 10k health, and then I'll actually level melee into this thing, dude. Be a beast.
And I killed a few more locals for XP and raw meat so I could actually heal them up a bit. Now, when I returned back home, I refueled my forges and I flew down to heist the beavers again. I'm sure they're not getting fed up with me cleaning them out every few days though. Now with my forges restocked, I flew down to take out a Diplo near my base for some meat, and when I returned it was time to get metal. The voices in my head were really starting to get to me.
Time to feed my addiction. I don't need a ton of metal right now, but I want to keep farming it. Because as long as I can get a Theory saddle blueprint, it's probably going to be pretty expensive. Who knows, I might need to make an industrial forge to farm the metal for the saddles. You know, you always need metal, dude. I want to make a hatching platform soon. I got to keep scouting for Theories to tame. I also want to stay on top of the tribute grind, especially the 10 artifacts. I've already got 2 of them, but those are definitely the easiest ones.
Yeah, there were a few artifacts I was not looking forward to getting, such as those inside the Labyrinth Cave. If you don't know what that is, it's a complex maze filled with traps, oversized snakes, and 2 main paths that both lead to different artifacts. So to go through that cave, I'd really have to be prepared thoroughly and probably have a good shotgun by my side. And I'm also going to need a shoulder pad at some point, as I'm pretty sure you do have to make a sacrifice to the art gods in there. All that, however, was a future problem for future me. For now, the main goal was metal. I returned back home on day 25 and split all the metal into the forges. I then also forced all of Burnt Toast meat down his throat to heal him up quicker, and I went out to get more in the form of a Diplo.
Got an idea.
A free Alpha Raptor near base? Now that's an opportunity that I just can't pass up. So I dropped the Raptor, which gave me 5 levels, which of course all went into health, putting it up to the 10k that I needed.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go try and get another artifact from that. They moved the artifact, I think it's the artifact with the strong, out into the southern Wyvern Cave. I'm pretty sure that's it. But I wanna just go try and grab it, give this Burnt Toast guy a little test run. See how well we can bob and weave from wyverns.
That being said, I headed right over to the Wyvern Cave. Now, after arriving, I nearly dove right into death itself.
Oh my god, holy wyverns.
I tried to keep my distance, but one of the fire wyverns noticed me, meaning my cover was now blown, so it was now all or nothing. I went into the cave, which looked much better here on ASA. These glowing crystals on the walls actually made it possible to see stuff, and there were even more cave drops now.
Pet drop. This place is so much bigger than it used to be.
Inside the drop was an Ascendant assault rifle, also known as the most useless firearm in the game. Anyways, since I'm yet to attract any of the locals, I moved slowly and I stayed off their radar looking for the artifact. And I found this safe little spot at the back of the cave, so I perched up for a second and did some research on where exactly I could get the artifact.
I think I need to go farther back in the cave. There are a ton of wyverns back there.
It was only a matter of time before one of them noticed me.
Oh my god, that music just scared the crap out of me.
I retreated back to my safe spot where I did manage to lose its aggro, so I could go back and make a quick plan of action for the artifact heist.
I think I'm just gonna have to try and draw them out.
I grabbed their attention by lightly tapping on their shoulders, and I kited them around the cave to lose them. However, there were still more inside though, and now the main room was getting kinda crowded. So I decided to fully head out of the cave to regain some stamina first. Now when I was ready, I dove back in and snuck past all the wyverns.
There's a wyvern in the wall. Where do I go? Oh, what's that down there? I think I've been trying to go to the wrong place.
And I made sure to lose all the wyverns before flying down into the crevice, and there I spotted the ruins I was expecting to see along with the artifact.
Yes! Now let's get out of here.
And just like that, I vanished, as if I was never there. I then flew back home and threw the artifact of the strong up on the pedestal.
Boom, another artifact. Not bad, not bad, not bad.
I repaired my crossbow and I admired my base once again until I noticed a tiny flaw with my pillars.
Oh, I can make, let me extend these pillars to look better. Red drop and a yellow drop. Don't mind if I do.
Small details, but they made the whole base look so much better and structurally sound. Anyways, I unlocked the chemistry bench engram and went out to get some narco berries with Perry as it was time to get back on taming duty. More specifically, I needed to get more high level theories since the one I had was utter garbage. Now back at the crib, I split all the berries into the mortar and pestles. I then started the narcotic production and I crafted a few trank arrows as well. I then grabbed my trap and hopped on burnt toast and headed out to tame any high level that I could find.
So I'm pretty sure theories are pretty common around here.
Not only were they common, but also high level. I spotted this level 135 not even a minute into my search.
Yeah, dude, Ragnarok just has so many high levels.
So I quickly threw the trap together and I cleared out the area around the trap of any trees and angry ops.
There it is.
And leading it in was pretty straightforward, but not as straight as the Theory's pathfinding though.
What is wrong with your AI, man?
Anyways, with the Theory now trapped, I flew back home to grab the spikes. And when I returned, I clapped a random low level griffin and I started knocking out the tickle chicken until it pulled this trick on me.
What? Did you guys see that? What?
Yeah, not sure when the Theories had their jump height TLC, but somehow this guy just straight hopped over the wall. So I trapped him in again and now I could actually knock him out.
There's a dialer like right next to it.
But then, out of the blue, my griffin got jump scared by Freddy Fazbear himself. One swipe later, he kind of disappeared into the ground though, so I guess that's it.
I believe theories seem a little quicker on crops, and I think you can get some crops if you just fly out to the highlands. They're just in the ground. Alright, bro, chill out.
That being said, I ventured over to the highlands where I soon spotted a red drop coming down.
Okay, so these are the highlands, and then that island over there, that big one, yeah, that's all new. I wasn't there before. Definitely have to check that out.
But first, the red drop.
Terrible shotgun. Okay, I'm actually gonna keep these. I can demolish those for metal.
Crappy boomstick aside, I started looking for those crops. And there was also a level 95 Giga roaming the area.
I swear there's crops right here. No? What? Where do you get crops nowadays?
So the crops might have been removed, or I guess I was just not finding any. I guess I wasn't looking in the right area or something. I don't know. But anyways, I headed back as I didn't want the Theory to wake up. I arrived back at the Theory on day 27, and I fed it some narcotics and mayo berries. On a side note, I couldn't actually demolish those metal elevator platforms as I didn't have a track to place them on. So for the time being, I just stuffed them into my storage box, and I grabbed a simple trap to go and try to get a second Theory to knock out. I then returned back to the sleeping one and repair the foundations, and I also picked up some of them to reuse.
Let me go see if I can't tame another theory while this guy's still working. There's just, it's not really a problem finding them, man. They're high levels and they're kind of everywhere. Might as well, it's the best one I can get.
And on another side note, I remember there being something just behind this waterfall.
Isn't there a cave behind this? Oh, they changed it. Just water.
Anyways, back to looking for the Theories. I found a male level 90, so I quickly turned that in the hide before getting chased off the cliff by the most fearsome of the creatures known to man. I then scouted the area around the castle, but next a red drop coming down nearby did catch my attention. So of course, I had to go investigate that. Before landing to open it, I had to deal with a couple of owls, but their brains would come in handy as tribute, so progress I guess. Anyways, the red drop was pretty mid though, so I flew back to attend to the sleeping Theory. Now back at base, I grabbed and spoiled a ton of meat before getting on Perry for a second annual grass mowing job. Now, with the decent amount of narco berries gathered, I split them into my mortar and pestles to start the cooking process. And this Theory was also tamed, so I flew back down to wait for that to happen.
Very tamed. Better melee. That helped though.
I then picked up the remains of the trap and flew back home.
Okay, so neither of these griffins I'm really super happy with. So I want to continue to tame more, but I also want to set up a hatching platform where I do a ton more, where I really get into breeding and all that. So I'm going to need some griffins because we also, I don't even know if I mentioned this. If you guys even know, there's the lava golem and the ice worm queen. Definitely want to fight the ice worm queen. Don't know about the lava golem because I heard they buffed it and it's like terrifying now. So not sure.
Point being, I wanted to start breeding some stronger dinos sooner rather than later. And to do that, I needed to make a little hatching area.
I'm actually trying to figure out how I want to build this because I want it to look good. This other stuff looks good.
I also had to figure out where to actually place this thing as space was slightly limited up here on this mountain.
Could easily do it down there. That's like the biggest flat open spot that I have. Also kind of want to use that for dino storage though. Could do it up against the wall right here.
In the end, I decided that that would be the move. So I rolled over on green bean to smack up the rocks, and I then flew down to gather the thatch. But of course, no farming run is complete without robbing the beavers. And on my way over to them, I also wanted to feed Bird a little bit.
Holy. double take, bro. Boom.
Now, with all the resources farmed up, I crafted a bunch of foundations to lay down on the base of the hatchery.
Obviously, I'm gonna put my ACs up against this wall, but I want to build like a roof type thing over this.
That being said, I made a bunch of pillars, ceilings, and ramps, and I started experimenting with a roof design.
Do I like this?
The answer was no, so I picked it up and I spaced out the ramps by one more ceiling. I then added pillars as a support as it was starting to take shape. I did run out of wood, however, though, so back to the beavers I went.
Yeah, there's quarter walls. All right, I think I know what I want to do here.
The quarter walls and ceilings really brought the roof to life.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking how this is looking more now. Almost done with it.
Now, after placing the last few ceilings down, I added a couple of pillars on each side for the added support, and that concluded the hatching platform.
All right, that looks good to me. Now let's focus on getting some air conditioners.
I then crafted as many electronics as I could, and in the meantime, I checked to see how far my main generator reached.
Oh yeah, they barely fit.
That's what she said.
So I made 4 extra ACs in total, and I lined them up at the back of the platform.
Not a bad little hatching platform. I think this looks cool. Probably use some work, I just don't exactly know what yet.
Now, with that build out of the way, I could get back on taming duty. I wanted to tame even more theories, as the ones that I do have were not exactly the strongest. So I first checked around my hill and then flew down to the canyon, but not even a single theory in sight yet. And I also checked in on the ice wyverns, and a new one spawned in since my last visit. However, it was only a level 20.
Terrible.
Anywho, I flew over to the jungle area where I spotted the first chicken, a level 130. And considering how easy it was to find high levels here on Ragnarok, I hesitated a bit before actually decided to tame it regardless. I then got the theory inside on the first try.
Oh.
And of course, it bit the door frame, so I had to go on a whole side quest to farm some more resources to then repair it before I could pick it back up and try trapping it again. When I returned back on day 30, I picked up the door frame and then led the theory in and actually locked it in properly. When it knocked out, I inspected the stats, but they did not look promising, like, at all.
Like it's gonna be another sucky melee.
Only one way to find out though, so I flew back home to grab mayho berries with Perry. Now, when I returned, I fed the chicken both narcotics and the berries, and I waited around for a while before hopping back on burnt toast to go out and look for more theories.
You're dying, bro.
But shortly after clapping that, I found a second theory, and it was a level 140. But it was also mate boosted, but I couldn't exactly see his mate anywhere. So for the time being, I just made a note on my map.
Genuinely don't know where the other theory is. Because I swear only females spawn with babies, so there has to be another full-grown theory around. No? Let me go get the trap. You need to leave one. Oh, it's red. Oh my, in the 130 Ragnarok's levels are just crazy.
High level tickle chickens were on the handout today, so the plan was to tame all of them to see how good of a melee and health stat I could actually get. But anyways, first I returned back to the sleeping 130 and I farmed up a single stone foundation. That way I could leave one below this guy so he wouldn't magically bury himself underground when I go out of render distance. Anyway, I then grabbed the rest of the trap and took off. However though, I got slightly distracted when I immediately spotted a gift coming down in the distance.
Drop with the ring? Holy dude, Ark is blessing up today.
Inside, I found a whole fabricator and industrial grill. I also got some riot gear as well, and a bunch of stews and a medical brew. Overall, a W drop.
W's in the shot.
Anyway, I returned back to that 140 theory. I then slapped the trap down and led the theory in on the first try.
Oh, it has child. Okay.
Also, do not ask me why the father is mate boosted by its own child. That's just how Ark works, I guess. On day 31, I shot the father theory unconscious while the little bro watched.
Boom. Some decent melee.
The stats were already looking much better than that 130, but I still had to come back and check on it as it had a chance to redeem itself after taming.
Alright, go get up more narcotics crafting because I still gotta knock out that 135.
That being said, I started spoiling more meat on my way back home. Looking into my mortar and pestles, the lack of narco berries seemed to be more of an issue though. So I emptied out my RG's inventory and picked up Perry to carry him down the hill for some more lawn mowing. Now, while minding my business, a local thief pulled up on me with malicious intent. But when he actually tried robbing me, he got outplayed by a stack of mayho berries in my inventory.
Oh, okay. About to chop you up, dude. Ugh. Naming him Ugg because he's ugly.
That also reminded me that I needed to tame a kipper as well, an important problem for future me. Anyways, I brought the berries back home and I cooked up a bunch of narcotics before flying back to check on my sleepy chickens.
The other one wake up? I swear it should have tamed.
Luckily though, it did tame, but as I anticipated, the stats were absolutely worthless.
Oh my god. Horrible. That is actually horrendous.
It probably would have been better if the after tame stats just stayed a mystery. Anyways, after crowing that, I flew over to check on the 140, which was pretty close to waking up. So I shoved an unhealthy amount of narcotics down his throat before feeding it. I then grabbed a few basic resources to repair the trap, pick it up, and go knock out that 135 theory as well.
Where's that red 135? There it is. That's a cool color.
Hopefully the stats would match the drip. Anyways, I then constructed the trap and farmed up a few extra arrows, which I made in the trank arrows as I was running pretty low on those.
Oh, okay. I guess he just fell. Got it. This one as a kid as well.
When it slumped over, I inspected the stats, but they weren't looking too promising either.
My best bet is definitely that 140 theory. We'll see.
And as I landed behind it, the child aggroed on me as if it was about to do something. For now though, I just had to babysit these two and make sure they tamed while also taking out any weaklings in the area. The 140 tamed on day 32, and the stats came out a little better than my other theories.
Whatever, I guess it's a bit better.
Back to standing simulator though, as the second theory still had a while to go before taming. But approximately 1 decade later, the 135 was about to be tamed as well.
Yeah, definitely got the best melee we're gonna get.
So I returned back to the crib after a long day out and checked out all the theory stats to determine the best two breeders.
So 365 melee and then 7,300 health. I'm gonna have to breed this out. This sucks. I need to tame an Oviraptor.
But the plans changed on day 33. Looking at my artifacts, I wanted to go out and get the next one soon, and the easiest one of the bunch would probably be at the bottom of the Tuso Trench deep out in the ocean.
So I could get started on water tame soon, because taming a Tuso wouldn't be crazy hard. I probably just need to get an Ichthy and a Bassie. I can kill Tusos for black pearls, and then I'd like to tame my own Tuso, to be honest.
Anywho, I snagged the loot from this yellow drop, and I flew over to peek at the red one in the distance as well.
Pretty bad drop.
On that note, I started heading back home. I also wanted to upgrade my sword system by crafting vaults, but for those, I'll need to get polymer. So my first idea was to make a chainsaw and farm mantises over here in the burnt area. But then I remembered something else that has been added for Ragnarok.
Oh, you know what I should do for polymer? Instead of looking for mantises, there's Karkinos now. I know. Where did I see it? Didn't I see Karki somewhere? Alright, let me go exploring real quick. I think I know where I can find some, but I'm not positive.
So I flew over to the red obelisk, where I was soon met with a brand new little island.
Oh, there's a whole castle? That's sick. This is really cool.
I was also looking for some sort of cave with a water entrance, however I wasn't exactly sure where it was. So I flew up to the peak of the mountain and I did a little bit of research.
I think I messed up. I think it's just out in the desert.
So I flew over to the desert, where I quickly spotted one of the upcoming challenges.
Oh, this is the labyrinth cave. You guys don't know how much I'm dreading this.
The entrance got a nice upgrade from what it used to be. Anyways, I flew all the way to the back of the desert, where I came across a group of smaller islands, another new addition. And it was on one of these islands that I found a small cave that I've been looking for.
Oh yeah, this is the Karkinos cave, and there's even organic polyplants right here.
So I packed up the giant crabs before whipping out the good old sickle and going ham on the glowy polymer bushes.
Oh, this is crazy good.
Now, with more than enough polymer secured, I started heading back towards the green obelisk, where I knew of one more cool cave to explore.
This is the cave.
Toast was a bit too fat to fit through, but I hopped off to check out the place.
So if you don't know what this cave is, it's kind of like just a cool cave that like kind of pays respects to people in the community, and there's people who worked on the map. Axeman, Zavi's in this. There's a bunch of YouTubers. Am I in this?
I looked through all the names on the walls, but my name was nowhere to be seen.
Prometa? Tell me I'm on this. No. Oh, I don't think I'm on this. My buddies are, though. Man, now I'm just sad.
All hope was not lost on day 34, as when I entered another room with even more names to look through.
Oh, there's more names. There's so many more names. Krugerop? Come on, dude. I have to be in here. That dude doesn't even make videos anymore.
I used some advanced parkour to get up to the top floor, and I looked through all the names, but mine was just not there.
Come on, are there any more rooms?
And to rub some salt into the wound, I literally got assaulted by a gang of monkeys.
What's your problem? Oh, why are the monkeys attacking me?
Not sure what instigated the aggression, but they were no match for my blade.
I think this is the last room. Come on, please tell me I'm in this. Jet Chufi's in this? Come on. Natural Causes is in this twice. There's Syntac, Axeman.
So many names, but mine was actually nowhere. I always just had a hunch Ark didn't like me. I just never knew why. Disappointed and confused, I returned back home to get back on track. I unlocked the vault engram and I crafted a couple, but I couldn't exactly fit them where my current storage boxes were. So instead of cramming them somewhere in the back, I wanted to expand the front of my house a little bit. So I grabbed some stone foundations and made a 2x3 platform out front.
I'm gonna expand the base out this way a bit, make it like storage expansion, you know?
To realize such a project though, I needed more wood, which by now you all know where I get it from. The usual thatch farming session also followed so I could make all the pillars. I also moved the forges around. I then stored all the metal and charcoal away, but I still had to finish the roof as it was looking a bit blocky in its current state.
I think it's in dire need of quarter ceilings.
I returned back to base after a successful heist on the beavers on day 35. I then crafted a bunch of quarter ceilings and I placed them all around the new roof. And a few finishing touches including me making pillars to add between the two roofs as well as the sides of the house. Boom. And now that my storage situation was fixed, I could get back to attending to my fairies. While they did their thing, I collected berries on Perry, and when the first egg hatched, I looked at its stats. Terrible. And so was the second baby theory. Luckily, on the third attempt, I got a female with a good melee, so she would get to live. So of course I named her F Melee to keep track, and I waited till she grew up. That was taking a while though, so on day 36 I decided to start working towards the underwater tames. I unlocked and crafted an itchy saddle, grabbed my scuba that I got from opening countless drops, and I set out towards the ocean while totally not getting sidetracked by a red drop with a ring. An interesting combination of loot to say the least. But I flew back home to store the veggie cakes away, as that might come in handy later. Back to the water tames though. On my way over to the ocean, I killed a couple of big boys for prime meat. So I then flew out to the middle of the sea and dove in. But I didn't see any dolphins, so I returned back to scout the Viking Bay. But that was just as equally as dead, so I flew towards the blue obelisk and set my sights on the first Itchy at level 130. I then fed it once, but I soon found myself in a little bit of a predicament. I couldn't get onto my griffin either, so I had to swim back to shore and just wait for the dolphin to lose hunger. When I jumped in the feed it the second time, I had my cryopod ready, and as soon as it tamed, I shoved it into my pocket.
How good am I? How good am I?
Now with the Itchy secured, I swam back to the beach. I then hopped on Burnt Toast and researched the most common spots for basilos.
Okay, basilos don't spawn too often up north. I think I'm gonna go more out past the swamp.
Now when I arrived at the southwestern-ish side of the ocean, I threw out the dolphin and I named him Fishy. I then also cryoed Burnt Toast before heading out to find myself a good basilosaurus. And I swam all the way out to the deep ocean that had this really bright glowing seaweed. But on day 37, I spotted my arch nemesis of the water, so I decided to abandon the mission for now.
Oh yeah, that reminds me, I don't want to be in the ocean. Future problem for future me. Oh my god, they are everywhere. Who asked for these things to be in the game, dude?
That being said, I beelined it straight back to the shore where I found a few sparkly shells.
Pearls? Hold up.
I can't pass up on some free GPU crafting material, so I put the flippers back on and started filling my pockets. Now with 3.5 stats collected, I hopped back on Burnt Toast and we headed home. I also opened a yellow drop on the way, but the loot was pretty insignificant. Then the melee theory was fully grown, so now I bred that with a male to hopefully get a perfect breeder. Unfortunately though, the first baby did not meet my standards, and neither did the second or third. And the trend also continued with child number 4. But then baby theory number 5 redeemed her fallen brothers and sisters, so I named her Perfect F. That also meant that F Melee could now retire into the useless pile of theories that was actively being formed at the top of the hill.
Alright, I want to get some water up to my base because I need to make a cooker because I am going to need veggie cakes.
And for those, I will need crops as well, but I could worry about that later. Now, as for the industrial grill, I was only missing oil, so I hopped on Burnt Toast and we flew over to the ice cave to farm some liquid freedom.
Really forgot my fur.
One quick back and forth later, I had the fur drip on, no longer freezing inside the cave, so I could get to work. On a completely unrelated note, however,
Man, I still have this ugly pego on my shoulder.
it only serves to remind me that I need to tame a kipper, the superior of all other Ark shoulder pets and dinos in general. Anywho, with enough oil being gathered, I flew back home and made the industrial cooker. Now my forges still had a little bit of raw metal in them, so I relit those before heading over to the engram page to unlock the water intake, the tank, and the tap. Now I was aware of the water vein on top of my hill, however the scorched earth engrams were disabled here for some reason. Even when I was looking at the chainsaw engram earlier, I couldn't even unlock it though, as I was already high enough level. So I was forced to craft a bunch of tanks, a tap, and an intake, and then go find the nearest water source, which happened to be the beaver's pond.
So just use this taxpayer water down here. Bang! We are connected water, chat.
I slapped the cooker down on day 38 and I unlocked the toilet engram, as it was also time to set up the crop plots.
Boom. Toilet. Now I need to place this in a strategic place where I can repeatedly jump over and over real quick, hit my head, and fall back down. Back here is perfect. Yeah, okay.
After placing the toilet, I lodged myself in between and I could jump and drain my stamina without actually even moving, meaning I found the sweet spot.
Not even moving and I'm just wasting stamina.
So I got a couple of fertilizer bags as proof of concept and returned back to my hatchery to continue the theory line.
Alright, now let's get back to the theory breeding real quick. So I want to get a perfect breeding pair and then start breeding these guys. Get with an oviraptor, and then I'll start doing other things again. I just need to get the melee on a male.
So I moved the perfect female over to breed with the male, and I had an intense staring contest with the toilet in the meantime. Now once the egg was ready, I hatched it, and as usual it turned out to be garbage, so back to waiting for more on the toilet. The second baby also had all the good stats, but it was another female. It would help speed up the process though, so I named it and collected berries for it with Perry. Now the third egg produced twins, but as you could probably guess by the footage currently on screen, they did not suffice. The fourth baby suffered a similar fate as well. Now the fifth was another perfect female, which I ended up imprinting on to see the end goal stats. Now egg number 6 finally popped out to be the perfect male theory, so I renamed him. I then kept my breeder theories on mating as I needed eggs for an oviraptor. Now once I had a couple, I hopped on burnt toast and we headed over to the Viking Bay to find one of those little egg goblins. I continued flying down the beach towards the blue obelisk on day 39, but the fog was making sea things a real pain, so I pulled the quick relog trick again to make it all vanish. And I made it out to the blue obelisk, but not one oviraptor entered my field of view, so I started heading back.
Been a hard time finding an oviraptor, man.
Finally though, on the opposite side of Viking Bay, I spotted one, so I pulled out my bolas, trapped it, and shot it once.
Go to sleep.
Then one right hook later, it understood the assignment and promptly fell asleep, so of course I fed it the eggs and then waited. One feed was enough though in the oviraptor tame, so I named it Mr. Egg before crying it and returning back home.
Man, I need to make a theory saddle, not whistling these things around.
Now with the saddle made, I moved all the other trash theories behind the base. Also, I'm not sure if they agreed with this kind of treatment, as one of them gave me a pretty devious side-eye while I was distracted. Anywho, I deployed Mr. Egg below the breeding line of theories, and I waited for the perfect male to fully grow up. Now, the waiting process may or may not have included me taking another dump on the toilet. So after the theory grew up, I brought it over to start the breeding process.
Okay, now I want to get crop plots going with crops growing, because I'm going to need veggie cakes for the theories for the boss fight. Just going to need to set up an area for that.
I also wanted to set up a little area for the crops, so I made a few foundations to lay out the base.
I make like a little shack right here. Gotta make this look good. I'm gonna go need farm wood though.
Farm as in steel per usual.
Wait, will I even be able to put a roof over these? Will they grow? Let me just I'll make some greenhouse ceilings. How about that?
But all of these builds start with pillars, so I made some of those as well as quarter ceilings and the greenhouse ceilings.
No idea how this is gonna look. Okay, how does this look? Let me get some stairs going up to it.
And for the sides hanging off the cliff, I just added railings.
Okay, boom. Oh, you know what I just thought about? If I place the crop plots how I'm thinking, I won't be able to access. I can only access the ones that are on top, or I can access all them except the one back here. Whatever, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, basically, I wouldn't be able to access the back crop plots as they would be blocked off by all the other ones. A near future problem for a very near future me. For now though, I actually wanted to craft the crop plots, which are insanely expensive for some reason. So I grabbed some fiber from the bushes, smacked up a few trees, and I then grabbed green bean to get stone. I then made the first 3 crop plots, which I placed down in the greenhouse, leaving the back foundation empty for now.
Gotta go farm more wood real quick.
Now, with another 5 crop plots crafted, I placed them down in the greenhouse, and now emerged the future problem that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so how am I gonna think that through? I can just access it through this. Okay, never mind. Ain't nothing to worry about.
Yeah, everything was calculated and it worked out perfectly in the end. So I made another couple of rows of crop plots and placed them down. But the cooking was not over just yet.
I got an idea. I think I can make this even cooler.
And you know what else went through the roof? My wood stocks after a quick visit to the beavers. And it was all in the name of progress though, so I could finish the greenhouse.
Yeah, that was sick.
Now, a few more sideways pillars to add structural integrity and the build was complete. Now, to get all the seeds. I hopped on Perry and we went downhill, munching bushes for all the different crop seeds. I also kept all the narco berries while at it, and when I returned, I threw everything into the fridge as I still needed to farm all the fertilizer.
Wait, these are irrigated, right? Not irrigated?
I made another water tap and I placed that down on one of the pillars, and I soon discovered why they weren't irrigated.
What?
So I made another tank and placed it around the back side of the greenhouse, and now everything was watered via Bluetooth or something. There's no way this should realistically work at all. But now I could actually start the fertilizer grind, which is a pretty cursed process, but it had to be done in the name of progress. Now once I had exactly 16 bags of fertilizer, I distributed 1 into each of the crop plots. I then seeded them as well so they could start producing passive income. Now the next course of action, right back to the toilet of course, as I wanted to keep them fertilized for a long time. Now with another pack of 16 produced, I returned back to distribute it, and the crop plots were already paying off.
Greenhouse effect is crazy.
These crops were in fact going through the roof, yield-wise at least. Anyways, I checked on the oviraptor, which had been collecting eggs this whole time, and it's fair to say he amassed quite the collection, so I paused the breeding on the male for now. Anyways, I was now actually running a bit low on food myself, so me, Amber, and Toast went out to commit a multitude of crimes against bigger residents of Ragnarok. And when I returned, I threw everything that I had onto the grill and watched it all get cooked. On day 42, I got in the taming mood again after a while. I did promise that I would tame the new creatures added to Ragnarok, and the bison was one of those.
Okay, I want to tame a bison. They are new to Ragnarok. We need to tame one. Canon event. So they're actually just knockout tames, and you can tame them on berries, which is, I thought I would like creatures having like different ways of taming, but it's so easy knocking them out, man.
So I made up a bunch of narcotics with the berries that I farmed earlier, and I flew back down to stock up on arrows as well. The plan was to just try and knock one out off the back of burnt toast.
Hey, go tame a bison.
I've already found where they spawn, which was the big new island behind the green obelisk, so I beelined straight over there.
So sick of this fog, man. Look at it, it's just like coating all the land.
And it also made seeing things hard, so I did the good old relog trick to fix that issue.
Bison spotted. No good levels though. Kinda weird, man. They just kinda look like cows. Is a bison a cow?
Cow or not, I found a level 145, so it was time to clear the area of any significant citizens. Now this one aloe was a level 130, so it tanked through a bunch of my swipes since it healed off the corpses of the weaker stegos. But once those went extinct, it was over for Lil Bro. Now the second group of aloes was met with a similar treatment, so I could finally get to trinking out the bison. I shot it a couple of times, and as expected, the whole herd pulled up on me. What I didn't expect is to get dismounted, and to top things off, Burnt Toast had the brilliant idea of trying to land, sending me flying into the ground.
Whoa! Are you kidding me? They stun?
Now, when I got back on, a third-party Carno joined the scuffle, but I continued trying to knock out the level 145 regardless.
Oh my god, what are they doing?
This time though, the Carno came back with murderous intent, and as I tried helping out the cows, I got dismounted again.
That's wicked, they dismount you.
Perhaps getting a trap might have been a better plan after all, so I decided to head back home to grab it.
I'm going back to base and getting a trap, dude. This sucks.
I then grabbed all the walls, some stone, and wood, but I had to farm the rest of the thatch by hand to make foundations. Now, with the trap assembled, I first depoted all of Burnt Toast meat into the grill, and then flew back to confront the bisons once again. I then shot one of the bisons, alerting the herd and making them all rush to me, but I got dismounted before they got inside the trap. And when I hopped back on the griffin, the two other cows occupied all the space in the trap.
All of them are in the trap except the one I want.
So I killed one, allowing the 145 in so I could lock the trap, or tried to at least.
Oh, wait.
Whoa! Yeah, it turns out they could also ram and launch things in the orbit. The 145 was still not locked in though, so after killing his beta friend, I ran into the trap to pick up one of the walls and replace it.
Boom. Got it. Go sleeping. Man, 4,000 health, that's a lot.
I then picked up all the door frames and replaced them as regular walls, as packs of aloes could spawn in around these parts, and I didn't want my bison getting eaten. I then gave him some mayhu berries and waited around for the first feed, which only gave like 3 to 4% taming progress, similar to the Theries. I did, however, also see a red drop coming down on the island, so of course I had to fly over there and check that out. But the loot was not worth mentioning, like, at all, except maybe the single veggie cake that I got. So anyways, I headed back home, and that's when a second red drop appeared near the green obelisk, and this one actually had some quality loot. Back at the crib on day 43, I threw out all the spoilables into the fridge and checked on the bison through the tracker. Turns out they wake up relatively quickly as due to their low torpor stats, so I had to go back out and feed it narcotics. I also decided to stick around and just wait for it to finish taming, as even leaving for a little bit would probably cause it to wake up.
Yak.
Yak seemed like a more fitting name, but then I changed it to Cow regardless. I also closed the dossier immediately because who really cares about those, right?
Let me get this guy back home, get a saddle, and test him out.
Anyways, I picked up the trap, threw out Burnt Toast, and then we flew back to base. When I arrived on day 44, I grabbed some fiber from the vault and I made the bison saddle.
Alright. Man, 5,000 health? That's a lot. Let's go test this thing out. That's just a normal attack.
And as expected, it could harvest berries, and it also had a sprint bar similar to that of a woolly rhino.
When you sprint, you get faster and fill up your rage bar.
But actually hitting something for a mere 98 damage was kinda disappointing. There was this little head icon above my hotbar that I could switch to head down, but I wasn't exactly sure what that changes other than the way it attacks.
I'm getting clapped by this diary. That's kind of embarrassing. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do some more research before I keep using this guy. That had me a little concerned.
So I just returned home for now. And I couldn't help but notice that my forges were once again collecting dust, not actively smelting anything.
It is metal run time. My addiction. Me. I'm itching for it. Also, Bird has some really good weight now. I can farm so much more.
So that being said, I grabbed Henket and we flew out to feed my inner demons. After returning, I grabbed all the metal and sorted that out into the forges. Now, part 2 of metal grinding is getting the fuel to power the forges, so I flew down to visit my next door neighbors. Day 45 began with a routinely visit at the beaver pond just below my base. Actually 2 visits, as I stored the first batch and flew right back down for round 2. Now with my forges properly restocked, I could fly back to the metal cave to farm even more metal, as I'm yet to satisfy my addiction. The overly pressed Dinotheriums weren't a fan of my progress though, so I had to lead them off a cliff before continuing.
Dude, it's like 2:30 a.m. and that parasaur flying off the screen made me laugh. I am going insane.
And when I returned back to the crib, I split all the metal into the forges, filling 2 of them up to the brim. Now, just as I mentioned, it was really early in the morning, and I was beyond tired at this point. So the rest of the day looks something like this.
Okay, I want to set up tree sap taps to start getting sap going to craft. Oh my god, those are expensive.
Thanks to my addiction, I already had loads of metal ingots and a ton of cementing paste that I got to collect for free. Also, I already had 1 sap tap from a drop, so I made 11 more.
Let's go place these out in the redwoods.
Now, as I was flying through the murder snow, loaded it in for the first time, I ran into an entire family tree of ice wyverns.
Holy ice wyverns. Oh my god, look how many there are. That is absurd.
The longer I looked, the worse it got. Anyways, I made it to the redwoods, so I placed all the sap taps down on 3 of the closest redwood trees and then headed back home.
Like, dude, this is absurd. Why are some of them small? Stimulants. I am gonna need to make a chemistry bench, man.
To make that, I needed a lot of Intel graphics cards, some crystal, polymer, and spark powder. So I fired up the fabricator to craft up a bunch of the electronics. I then grabbed some crystal and polymer from my storage boxes, and I cooked up some spark powder in the mortar and pestle.
Boom. Need to invest in a better berry farmer. Barry's good, but he's not cutting too much anymore.
That being said, I patched up my trusty crossbow, farmed up a few arrows that I turned in the tranks, and then headed out to find a Bronto to tame.
You know what? I don't need a high-level Bronto. This will be fine.
Time was of the essence in this challenge, so wasting it looking for a high-level Bronto marginally better returns on bushes was not optimal. Now, with the Bronto out cold, I made a stop back at base for Mayho berries and then returned back to feed it. Now, while waiting for that to tame, I decided to get a head start on the stimulant grind by going out and farming spark powder with Hangette. Back at base on the morning of day 47, I used Bird to help me practice some dark magic.
Hello?
Now, after punching the air, my spell broke and I fell back down to the floor so I could get back to what I was doing. That being cooking spark powder and my new chemistry bench. I also grabbed the crafted Bronto saddle that I got from a drop at some point and flew over to check on the sleeping giant.
That would have been nice to tame, but whatever.
I waited patiently until my Bronto woke up just so I could give her the magnum opus of dino names.
Barry.
I then gave Barry the platform saddle and fitter into my pocket. Now back at base, I made an insignificant amount of stimulant and narcotics before taking Barry down to test her gathering capabilities.
Hey, Bronto's not as good as I thought. I need like a Theory to like guard me down here because I keep hitting stuff.
So I crowded Big Barry back into my pocket. I then collected a mid blue drop and flew back home to make narcotics and stimulants from the berries that I gathered. I then collected all of my passive income from the greenhouse and stored it in the fridge.
To make more cryopods, and then I think I'll get around to starting to hatch Theory armies, yeah. Need to try and figure out a way to get a Theory blueprint saddle.
Now for that, I had 3 options. I could go and fly through the vast desert to see if I could find any loot crates which used to spawn out there on ASE. Now, option number 2 would be the Ice Queen Cave. There should be several red cave drops scattered around the place, plus some extra drops that appear after killing the Queen Deathworm. And finally, there's the Lava Golem, but I don't think I plan on defeating him as he's big and scary. But the cave itself does have a few drops scattered around that I could probably get to. Anyhow, I needed to solve one problem at a time, so back to the cryopods. I loaded up Bird with the crystal and farmed some fiber, and I grabbed the rest of the necessary resources except the polymer. So for that, I went out to farm by killing mantises in the burnt area, or tried to at least.
Yeah, I'm seeing exactly 0 mantises. Oh, is this a cave?
Not exactly a cave, but a little tunnel through the mountain that led to the other side, where I was met with exactly double the amount of mantises that I saw before. 0 times 2 is still 0. I didn't find any mantises.
Looks like I will be flying to the other side of the map to get polymer. Okay, that kind of sucks.
Now, while flying, I came across a red drop with a ring, and it might have been historically the worst red drop that I've ever opened. Anyways, my imprinted griffin made the journey back suck a little less, but it still took me into day 48 to actually make it to the crab cave. I silenced the 2 guardian crabs before whipping out my sickle and farming up a bunch of polymer in seconds. Now, as I was exiting the cave, I discovered another secret way to instantly get rid of the fog, and this one didn't require me to exit the game.
It's foggy out here, but if I go in here, it's not as foggy. What's up with that?
Now, while flying back to base, I opened up a yellow drop with a ring, and inside I found even more organic polymer as well as a few metal structures. Anyhow, when I finally returned, I loaded up Bird with the poly and dropped a fat one in the toilet. And I then flew out to the ice cave first, as I still need to get oil for the cryopods.
You're like a true American right now. Oil. Yeah, let's go to Blue Obelisk, get these cryopods crafted up.
I arrived at the obelisk on day 49, and I crafted all 20 cryos that I could. Then, when those finished crafting, I headed back to base, but not before stopping by a yellow drop with another ring.
Bro, Did y'all really go from beefing with each other to just targeting me?
I took off so they would start barking at each other again, and I snuck behind the drop to snag all the loot before dipping back to base.
Alright, let me make a feeding trough too. I'll start hatching berries and stuff.
I then dropped a few trees for thatch and make the first feeding trough. Now for the second and third, I was still just missing a little bit of wood. So I pulled out the biggest plot twist of this challenge, and I used my hatchet to smack down a tree instead of robbing the taxpayers. Now back at the hatchery, I lined 2 of the troughs up below my theories, and I then placed the last one at the house. A perfect fit between the stairs and foundation. Now to actually fill them up with food. I had some meat on burnt toast that I threw into the first trough, and I then flew over to kill a couple of diplos just below base. I also needed to get berries, but this time I actually wanted to bring a theory with me to deal with all the ops, and that would definitely happen while farming with berries. So I saddled and leveled one of the perfect females up, and then grabbed berry and whistled bird to follow the theory. And as expected, my perfect F was pretty good at handling the hecklers. The farming continued into day 50. When I had enough berries to last me like the next 50 days, I cryoed both berry and the theory and then flew back home. And I once again made as many narcotics and stimulants as I could, and then split the rest of the berries between my feeding troughs.
Drop with the ring. Can't resist.
Then when I got back home, it was time to start the mass hatching of theories for the boss army. The first batch of eggs I grabbed would however not make it to adulthood, as I had a slightly different plan for them.
I want to see what the stats look like when this thing's like really level.
One thing my hatchery was missing was a Cody, but I could live without him for now. So I killed the newborn theories for a bunch of levels, and I got the theories health up to 20k, and the rest of the points are going in the melee. And it's safe to say that these tickle chickens were not up to par.
Ooh, yeah, these theories. Oh, these theories suck, dude. Oh god, that's really rough. That is. Need to go tame a light shore to see if that makes it any better.
So I grabbed just a handful of mayo berries from the fridge, and I flew towards the Viking Bay, where I came across a blue drop with a ring. And inside I found a few narcotics and stimulants, which I can't say no to. Anywho, I flew down to the beach where I spotted a tiny chonker, so I fed it a couple of times.
Odie.
I then brought Cody back home and threw him out next to the ACs. And while waiting for the cryo cooldown, I wanted to start cooking up the veggie cakes. That also reminded me to go look at my sap taps. I really got to see how much they actually produced.
What the? Do you guys see this circle on my screen? What is this?
Yeah, it appears that a random circle of the sky had just been burnt into my screen. Either that or I accidentally toggled my aimbot key. I don't know.
Hello? What is this? This is weird. I bet you a relog will fix it.
I relogged into day 51, but the circle was not gone. It was smaller and less opaque. I tried taking off my helmet, changing settings, but the circle persisted on assaulting the middle of my screen. So I had to ask around and find out what this mysterious circle was. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. Also, I totally forgot to make grapples to actually access the taps, so of course, I gotta fly back home and get those.
Is it on my screen? But it's not on my screen back here? What? I'm geeking out, dude. What is that circle? Why is it gone?
I unlocked the grappling hooks, and I picked up a bunch of fiber with a theory to make a stack of arrows for the said grapples.
I'm rich, might as well.
I then flew back to actually see the taps, but I was really not impressed with their work.
Ooh.
And the mysterious circle was also back to obstructing my view, so it seemed to be something with the redwoods/snowy area. Also, my grapples were outsourced from Temu or something, as I just kept cutting.
Bro.
Now, surprisingly, the peggos waiting below the tree were interested in these low quality grapples, and they robbed me clean of them.
Oh my god. They stole all my grapples.
And when I tried getting them back by force, I ended up hitting this racer, so I had to drop him and watch his child flee in terror. Now, after finally collecting all the sap, I flew back home to look at the cake recipe once more. And now the final piece of this puzzle was the giant bee honey.
Needed him a bear for honey.
I then threw the ingredients that don't spoil into the cooker and unlocked the dire bear saddle. Thankfully, bears were like the second most common animal in the forest all around my hill. So with that in mind, I should have no problem finding a decent level, right?
Man, where are all the bears at?
But then I remembered the ice cave that I often visit to farm liquid freedom in, and that's full of bears, so I flew over there. There was a level 95 that would be a decent team, however, I was not about to deal with the rest of them. So I abandoned this idea for now, and I returned back to look in the forest near my base. And sure enough, I was able to find a level 90 by itself. But my greed got the better of me though, and I started looking for another one. And when I finally gave up and decided that the 90 would work, I could not find it again for the life of me.
Am I tweaking? Where the bears at?
So I searched through the forest and even flew over to the mountains behind Triple Waterfall. But all the bears seemed to have just moved out of Ragnarok.
I guess I'm just heading back to the ice cave and having to fight my way through 4 other bears to tame one.
Now, on my way over to the ice cave, I took my anger out on an unsuspecting Pteranodon just going about his day.
That's what we call the drive-by.
Anyways, I spotted the level 95 bear inside the ice cave again, so I killed a random Daedon that was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I then set up my trap. After that, I shot the level 95 bear, instantly angering all the other ones.
Surely I got one of them that I won in, right? I think I saw a 90 in there. That's good enough for me.
So the rest of the bears had to perish.
Oh, you're the 95.
There was, however, a level 90 in the trap, so I perched up on them and started raiding tranks on it.
This is awkward. Forgot these things kind of hard to trank out. Let's go back to base. I'm gonna make a long neck and darts. See if that works. That's awkward.
Now flying back, I spotted a low level Yudi, and it's another dino that I would eventually have to tame. So I swooped this low level beta out of existence before beelining it to a red drop. Now remember when I said the historically worst red drop? Yeah, I think this one might have topped it, or bottomed it, I should say.
Holy worst red drop of all time.
After that disappointment, I made it back home, unlocked the long neck rifle, the bullets, and started cooking up the gunpowder. Now with my fresh Glock loaded, I could head back out and try and tame another bear. When I made it back on day 53, the bears had forgotten my crimes against them, so I ran up to pick up the trap. But perhaps getting so close to them was not a good idea.
Screw this, dude. I'm finding my own bear.
Exactly 12 seconds after saying that, this happened.
Boom. Perfect. Oh, that guy still wants it.
The 140 had a level 85 buddy though, so I'd have to watch out for that. Anyways, I constructed the trap nearby and I had a quick peek at Dodo decks to make sure I even had enough darts to knock this guy out.
Could have enough.
I had to tank quite a few hits before the bear climbed up to the trap, but I got it locked in, so it's time to force feed it darts.
Oh. Boom. Sleep. I think I've got some mutton back at base. I'm gonna make these walls though.
I also fed it a few narcotics before taking off to go grab said mutton. And I only had 3 pieces, which gave it a decent amount of taming percentage. But I still had some prime left on burnt toast, so I fed it some of that as well. Now soon enough he woke up tamed, so I named him Teddy before packing up and flying back towards home. I then found another low level Yudi that I had to banish into the Shadow Realm, but while doing so, I got Fear Roar.
Really? Griffins get affected by that? There's a Prolovia right there. Do not move, dude.
Now thankfully Burnt Toast wasn't as dumb as he looked, as he didn't approach the suspicious looking dirt next to us. So I killed the beta Yudi and flew back to base.
Alright, time to start hatching theories, man. I gotta get my army going. I'm not gonna be the strongest, but good thing I've made the executive decision, hear me out on this one, to fight the Gamma boss. Because I'm releasing this video so early, there's not any guides on how to defeat the beta or alpha, and I heard they're super strong, and my theories suck, okay?
Yeah, there was absolutely no chance my 500% melee damage theories could even scratch the boss's health bar on alpha. So there was no point in trying to do that anyway. So instead, I would go for Gamma and absolutely wipe the floor with it. Well, hopefully. Anywho, I threw the first batch of eggs out and I started the raising process. All while Ugg, my shorter pet thief, practiced the dark arts.
Why is my Pego half invisible? Do you see that? What?
Also, one of the theories asked for cooked prime fish meat, which was an odd request considering they're herbivores. But I actually had a couple of pieces that I found in one very useless red drop.
Why you keep drop loot?
The other theory was not so lucky though.
Exceptional kibble, you're dying. Regular kibble.
So I took the theories on a walk, but one of them looked to be a bit challenged, so to say.
Why is this one just not moving? Where's it going? This one's an idiot, man.
But even the idiot found his way to get imprinted, so he wouldn't have to end up like the other 2 theories that requested kibble.
I unclaimed. I think I unclaimed one that I imprinted. Oh my god. Whatever.
So that leaves us with 4 out of 7 theories left from batch number 1.
That was a not smart moment on my part at all.
Now the second batch of eggs popped out a pretty cool mutated theory with a purple body.
Mutation. Not into anything useful though. Walk. Cuddle. Cuddle. Holy easy group. Cook prime meat. Okay. That was a good group.
The chicken parenting continued into day 54. I enabled breeding on the male theory again as I was burning through the eggs pretty quickly.
But I need a ton more eggs to power level these guys.
Anyways, I continued raising and imprinting throughout the morning and soon I almost had all the theories growing.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have 16 theories. That's like 2 more.
I then threw another couple eggs out to hatch and I got twins from one. But now I have more than enough theories, that is, if one of them doesn't get greedy, of course.
Oh, they are shredding through the berries.
Yeah, having so many theories out was not optimal for my berry stocks, so I had to go farm more with my Bronto. I then threw the narco berries and stim berries into the chemistry bench and made a ton of stimulant, and then the rest went into my troughs for the boss theories to feast on. I then collected my passive income, which I stored in the fridge, almost filling it up.
Okay, the map being red was cool at one point, but this is a little much, man. It's like every day. However, though, I would like to acquire my next artifact. I'm gonna look up the location, but I'm gonna go get the artifact that's in the Tuso Trench. I'm just gonna swim with Fishy, cannonball it, speedrun it, whatever you want to call it.
So with a whole scuba set and Fishy on me, we headed out into the ocean in the early sunrise of day 55. I landed on the backside of the new island, and that was the closest piece of land to the Tuso Trench. And then I threw my diving suit on.
The water Ragdoll, not gonna lie, kinda terrified.
2 seconds later, I decided that this whole water operation was just not for me, so I grappled back to Burnt Toast. Just kidding, I left my valuable stuff on Toast as I didn't need it down there, so there's no point in risking taking it. Now, with a much lighter kit, I deployed Fishy, leveled his stamina and health, and Mission Yoink Artifact was now in full swing.
Go time.
I swam straight down into the deep ocean ravine, and I spotted the artifact immediately as it was glowing bright purple. And I snagged it just in time for 2 squids to pull up and try to abduct me.
It grabbed at me, dude.
A close call, but honestly, this felt like a walk in the park. Anyways, I swam back to Burnt Toast, cryoed up Fishy, and re-kitted myself before heading back home.
Boom, let's put this artifact up for display. So now I just got the one in the ice room cave, the one in the lava golem cave, yeah, and then what is the Life's Labyrinth, which I am so dreading. Man, this looks sick.
I did a bit of research on how to get a Theory Saddle blueprint, and based on what I found, the Ice Room Cave was my best bet. But I am gonna need to cook up medical brews though, as I definitely do not have strong enough fur to keep me warm in there. So I snagged all the tinto berries from my trough and threw them into the cooker along with the narcotics, and I started brewing. Now, while that was happening, I started the power leveling process of my boss theories. I grabbed a bunch of eggs, the saddle, and I hopped on the first boss theory to start committing the most heinous crimes under sunlight. The power leveling via mass execution continued throughout all of day 56 and 57.
All the fairies done. Finally, man. Alright, time to go check out my sap taps.
Surely they've collected a decent amount of sap by now, right? So after a short staring contest with my stairs on day 58, I headed over to the Redwoods, where I was immediately struck by the mysterious opacity circle once again. Besides that though, each of the taps produced 16 sap. Now, when I returned back to base, I remembered that I needed to cook up a bunch of medical brews, so it was time for Barry to shine once again. With a truckload of tinto berries gathered, I packed Barry into my left pocket and then flew home. And it's also now on day 59 when I remember that I'm still yet to complete objective number 1 of this challenge, and that is to tame an otter.
I need me a kipper. I want to find a high level. Sick of having this ugly thing on my shoulder.
Yeah, Ugg would most likely end up getting sacrificed in the Labyrinth Cave anyway. His future is not looking too bright. As for Kipper, however, he would actually come in clutch when exploring the Ice Cave, as otters provide a decent amount of thermal insulation when being on your shoulder. Now, with all that being said, I jumped on Burnt Toast and flew over to the lake at the top of the jungle near the Blue Obelisk, as otters usually hang around this place. And sure enough, I found a level 100 Kipper breakdancing in the middle, so I got to work. I first cleaned the area of any less significant beans, then dove into the water to chop up a fish or two. Now, smacking a salmon sounded like a good idea up until the rest of the family pulled up on me.
You checking my kipper? You deserve to die. I didn't even get the name of me. You went straight for my kipper, not even me.
I sat Kipper down on a rock and named him, and I then fed him the remains of those pesky salmons.
Life is good again. I have a kipper.
Mission success, I headed back home for the day. And yeah, I stood still in my house until the end of day 59, as I was kinda recording at 2 in the morning again, and I was not about to commit to any greater task at this ungodly hour. But on day 60, it was right back to work. More specifically, I wanted to go out and grab another artifact.
I want to try and do the lava golem cave, since you really just need to grapple through that. You can just get the artifact. I'm not gonna fight the boss, because honestly I don't know how I do it, because there's no velos on this map, so you'd have to fight it with rockets, and it just sounds like it would not end well.
That being said, I had to farm up a bunch of arrows as I was running low on grapples. So I queued up more medical brews to cook, farm fiber with my theory, and then flew down to get thatch and flint.
Ooh, a lot of grapples. If I have like a focal chili, I do. That'll be clutch. About bug repellent. Bug repellent would be super good in there.
I didn't have any of the fine bug fragrance, so I unlocked the engram and made a few. I then grabbed my grapples and looked at the fridge once more to see if I had any stews to counter the heat.
I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna have to rip the focal chili. Oh, I need parachutes. That's what I need to.
And I made a bunch of those as well as a few sleeping bags before heading out.
Alright, I'm ready to do this. I used to do this a ton back on ASE when I played PvP years ago. Let's see if I've still got it.
And I flew over to the cave entrance where I slapped down a couple of sleeping bags before applying the cologne and heading in.
Now there's pressure plates with the arrows here. Try to avoid them. So I just step on one.
And I was notified of the lava golem's presence.
Don't want to do that. Just want the artifact. And maybe steal some drops from me.
Now, going deeper into the cave, I started to grapple up the ceiling to avoid getting spotted. And I soon made it into the big open room with the lava and cave drops.
Killy? Interesting. think I gotta go back there. Dude, so far this cave is like really chill.
But that changed as soon as I descended even deeper into the artifact room. But that's exactly why I brought grapples. I parachuted above all the cave nasties undetected, yoinked the artifact, and just like that, I was out of there. Now, on my way out, I opened another red drop, and inside I found a goated flak helmet and a grenade.
I mean, I think I have to throw it. Okay.
I also grabbed the blue drop that I saw on my way in, and I got a really good pickaxe from it.
Dude, this cave is not bad at all. I remember this being way harder.
Now, just as I finished saying that, I nearly plummeted straight into lava due to my team of grapples. But thankfully, I landed on the last pixel of land, saving me from certain doom. Anyways, I then ran through the rest of the cave looking like the budget version of Spider-Man, and I did make it out in one piece though.
And I'm out, just like that. Easy artifact, too easy.
Now, flying back, I noticed an Alpha Raptor below me, so of course I had to kill it for that free XP. Now, when I arrived back at base, I displayed the new artifact.
The next artifact I want to get is, well, you got to defeat the Ice Worm Queen to actually get to it. So that's definitely going to be harder than what I just did. Kind of just waiting on these guys to heal up. They're working on it. I'm gonna kill it with Theres.
I entertained the idea of taming the Pyromane, so on day 61 I started prepping a few things such as bolas and a weak boomstick that I had from a drop.
Definitely not a good shotgun, but it should do the job. I'm gonna leave Kipper here just in case I die.
So I already knew where to find Pyromanes, I just had to get a high level. Now the first 3 I spotted were kinda mid, but then I found a 140.
Oh my god.
I had to lead it down to the water to get it weakened, which sounded easier to say than to actually do. And this is because the cat's advanced AI was actively working against me.
Nice AI, dude.
Anyhow, once we finally got down to the ocean, there was a second low-level Pyromane nearby, so I quickly packed it up along with a few other intruders. I then parked Burnt Toast on the backside of this pillar, hopped off, and I ran over to confront this Pyromane personally. I shot it once, angering it to run straight into water. And there I bulleted it and shot it a bunch, allowing me to ride it.
Got it.
Once I was on its back, the rest of the tame was pretty simple. I just had to harass the locals till the taming bar was filled up.
Boom. Got it. Okay. And then this thing in a second. That wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be, to be honest with you. Its melee looks really bad, dude.
We'll take what we can get though. So I returned back to base to get Hot Cheeto leveled up. I enabled breeding on the Theres and waited around for a few minutes, pet Cody, and then threw all the eggs out, and you know, the rest was history. Now, one cool thing about these flaming cats was their ability to transform into shoulder pets.
Oh, I forgot they do that. That's weird. How do I get it not? There we go.
And now I had to get him healed up before any adventure, so it's time to go on a little killing spree.
So the goal with this is just to run through the ice cave before the death worms can spawn, and then get back to the queen, and we'll fight it with the Theres.
With Hot Cheeto mostly healed, I returned back home and started crafting primitive Theres saddles. They still had quite some time left before being fully healed, so in the meantime, I could start farming up honey for veggie cakes with Teddy.
I'm gonna crouch. Oh crap. Jeez. I'm gonna craft some thatch structures, and that's what I'm gonna use to. I can probably do wood. I'm rich, and I'll use that as a platform. Get honey with the bear.
That being said, I dropped a few trees with my new pickaxe to make wood pillars and ceilings. I then grabbed Teddy from the fridge and headed over to the redwoods to get both the sap and honey.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna make an extra fridge. I'm gonna need, when I get back with the honey, I'm gonna need to store it somewhere. This spoils relatively quickly.
And I actually ended up making 2 extra fridges, and I placed them on the ground just below my cooker before heading out. When I arrived on day 63, I did a quick fog delete by relogging, and I collected all the sap. Anyways, I collected all the sap and then ventured deeper into the forest in search of beehives. I also disabled the fog, which made the mysterious circle disappear.
Woo! Lila, a little concerning that I haven't seen a singular beehive yet.
Now, to make sure I wasn't just going crazy, I checked the video that recommended me to fly to the other side of the map to find beehives.
They're usually in the redwoods, though. I really don't understand what's going on here.
So after not finding any, I flew back home to sort some stuff out before heading over to the supposed beehive spot. Spoiler alert, there were none.
Video said there'd be beehives. Are there just not beehives? Because that could really throw a wrench in my plans. There should be beehives all over this place.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but the beehives seem to just not spawn at all, which wasn't optimal as I pretty much need them for the veggie cakes. So on day 64, I went through my settings and I turned PvE mode on to see if that would change anything. Now, when I loaded back in, I started crowing up a few of my Theres as they had enough health to take on the Ice Queen now. And I also grabbed Hot Cheeto before hopping on Burnt Toast and taking off to find the cave.
Found it a little chilly in here.
Now, I checked to see if there were any drops, which there weren't, so I continued down the Deathworm's path.
Get this bear's attention before I deploy my guy.
With the bear promoted to raw resources, I threw Hot Cheeto out and it was showtime.
Okay, so the method is to just try and, run past the death worms before they come out. Nice.
As I got through the crouch point to actually go through the maze that this cave is, I paused my game and recording for some reason, and you all probably know what that meant.
Oh my god, my recording was paused. My recording was paused. I killed the ice worm and my recording was paused. Oh my god, I can't believe that. And I just got the... Oh, I'm such an idiot. My recording was paused. Alright, well, I'm gonna be coming back and fighting this again. There's no way I just did that and my recording was paused. I feel like such an idiot right now. Oh, I don't even have a flyer, man. How am I gonna get back to base?
Yeah, definitely not my proudest moment. But to make up for it, I would go back through and kill the worm again. And I would do that in the near future to make sure you guys actually see me clap her. But for now, I just had to figure out how to get back home, as I left burnt toast in the entrance and the exit of the cave is in the canyons for some reason.
Hello?
Now, once I was free of the magic spell keeping me stuck at the exit, I deployed Hot Cheeto and ran all the way back up the base. I then threw all my loot into the vault, deployed the fairies back into their line, and I waited, contemplating what I had just done.
Now that I got that shotgun, I need to do some research on how to do the labyrinth cave to get the final 4 artifacts. Where's the artifact I just got? Did I not display it? Well, since I didn't record myself getting it, I'm gonna rerun the ice cave real quick. I gotta show you guys that I actually did it. I cannot believe my recording was on pause.
That being said, I picked up Kipper and grabbed a few boss fairies.
You know what? I'm so confident that I can get this artifact again. I want to prove to you guys that like it was an accident that I had my recording off, because I know how sus that looks. I'm gonna throw this artifact off the cliff. I'll go get it again. Boom. Goodbye.
I picked Hot Cheeto up as well before hopping on Tiger to fly back into the cave. And yes, I had to go back on Tiger as I left burnt toast in there. Now this time when I flew inside, I actually saw one of the drops had spawned. So I snagged it and then crowed up both Tiger and burnt toast.
Alright, left you in here, dude. Time to run this cave again. Through here, crouch through this, straight through this. See this poor guy that tried to get out? Now I gotta jump down this.
And in here is where the dangerous ice worms can now spawn. So I threw out Hot Cheeto and started running through.
Yep. Ow, just keep going.
I spotted a red drop in the corridor, so I did a quick 180 to go and grab that.
I don't think they can get me in here. Crazy for a chest piece. Okay, let's keep going.
After getting out of there, the Ice Worm Queen is waiting behind one sharp right turn, followed by a long hallway that leads to this waterfall area. And at the end of it is a huge waterfall that drops all the way down into the Ice Worm Queen's den. So I can just leap right down to the bottom, cryo up Hot Cheeto, and then deploy my small army of fairies.
Oh my god.
I also threw Hot Cheeto back out to be safe, and while panicking, Burnt Toast also got deployed.
That's my griffin, no! Screw it, did not mean to throw that out.
Burnt Toast was taking quite a lot of damage from the Queen's hits, but we dropped her before any casualties.
See though, pretty easy.
Now, with all the drops collected, I picked my tames back up and ran to the back of the den where a small corridor led to the artifact room.
Oh yeah, baby ice worms, and is this Giga alive? Sleeping, dude. Okay, that's terrifying.
Anywho, I grabbed the artifact and returned back to the boss room. Now, just to the left is another opening, and this one leads back out to the surface.
See, this is my bag from last time. Boom, jump out here.
Yeah, exiting is a bit buggy, but that's pretty much the whole Ice Queen cave done and conquered for the second time. Now, back at the crib, I displayed the artifact of the pack, and I noticed I had a couple of grenades in my inventory, so of course I had to throw them.
Okay, now I gotta do some research on how to do the labyrinth cave. You're gonna need a shoulder pet to sacrifice, so obviously I'm sacrificing Ugg.
You also need a lot of firepower, which is why my shotgun is basically a must-have in that case. So I unlocked a simple bullet and shell engrams. And on day 66, the grind for freedom bullets continued on the back of Hankette. When I got back, I made more gunpowder shells, and I looked into my vault to see the Ascendant shotgun blueprint.
This would be crazy good to make. I could craft this in a fabricator. Oh, this could be so good. I might have to do it, dude.
I already had one mind wipe in my fridge, so I just needed to cook up one more. I also had an extra fabricator, so I grabbed that and some basic resources, using which I crafted a wooden quarter ceiling. I then placed a couple of those above my forges so I could actually place the fabricator up there and start loading it up with resources.
Okay, I should be able to fit this. Now it's just an obsidian farm.
So I emptied the main fabricator as well and put a bunch of paste in it, and I then grabbed Hankette for her career biggest obsidian farm. The farming continued into day 67, but my RG was getting a little heavy, so I'd actually have to make a second trip.
I've got about just over half of what I need. Go back to base and start crafting these. Oh, alright bro, that was not necessary.
I landed the RG inside the house, meaning when I dismounted, my head was forced straight through the roof. Now, after picking up the ceiling, I was free of the curse, and I could actually transfer all the obsidian to start crafting the copious amounts of polymer needed.
Back to farming.
I then returned with the second batch just before the end of the day, but it was still a bit of obsidian short from enough.
1100. It's like 1,000. Yeah, I need more obsidian. Not a crazy amount more, but definitely more.
I had to wait for the nodes to respawn though, so in the meantime I could get back to cooking up that mine wipe.
Yeah, should have everything besides just mayho berries, which I can get real quick.
I grabbed the other ingredients and I made one mind wipe tonic. Now I could go and get the remaining obsidian for the craft.
I think I should have enough obsidian now.
On that note, I flew back home to turn the rest of it into polymer.
Okay, just gotta wait for these to craft, and I should be able to make the shotgun.
An intense session of waiting for these to craft later on day 69, I threw the blueprint into the fabricator and realized that I needed more cementing paste. So of course, I flew down to check on my beaver friends. It's been a hot visit since my last visit anyway, so I'm sure they were pleased to see me stop by again. Now, by the time the polymer finished crafting, I moved it all into the top fabricator, and I was only missing roughly 300 cementing paste. And that's the equivalent of one small beaver dam, so of course, it was no problem. But, you know, I'm a little greedy, and I had to land by and loot a giant beaver dam. Now, back at base, I stored the paste into the fabricator, and I did a quick relog as the whole map was covered in fog. And my ops just had to bear witness to me crafting this ascendant piece of technology. I grabbed the mine wipes and threw all my stuff onto Bird, and I drank one of the lobotomy soups. I then developed carpal tunnel from all the clicking of my crafting skill, and then made the entire week's worth of farm disappear just by pressing E on the blueprint.
All those resources just vanish. Ugh.
They vanished for a cause though, and how good of a cause had to be determined by the roll I would get on the shotgun.
Oh, I mean, this is good, man, but it could have been better. It could have been better. Whatever.
One more brain reset soup and wrist surgery later, I had my stats back to normal. So I grabbed the freedom stick and slapped a hollow sight on it, and then I made a bunch more ammo.
I think it's mandatory that I test this thing out.
I also found out that the mind wipe tonics also reset your skill tree.
Oh, wait, it reset my skill points too.
I put them back in the hot-blooded again to regain my supernatural healing capabilities, and then repaired my armor. I also crafted new flight gauntlets as my riot ones were pretty beat up and I really don't feel like fixing those.
Alright, I saw something for the cave. You might be able to bring a pyro main in and like jump over a wall. That'll just save you a bunch of time.
So I cryoed hot Cheeto and made a few extra canteens. On day 70, I made the last stack of shotgun shells before mentally preparing myself for the hell that I was about to put myself through.
I think I'm pretty much ready for the labyrinth cave, man. There's only one guide out there for it right now because they did redo it in ASA, but it's a really bad guide. It is a terrible guide, I won't lie. This might take me days, to be honest. As long as I just don't be an idiot and die, you know, I'm gonna have to take it so slow in there. I should make an extra set of flak just to be safe.
I grabbed a couple of flak pieces from my vault and made extra gauntlets.
And am I out of metal? Oh my god. Cut that out. Alright, dude. I think I'm ready.
That being said, I hopped on burnt toast and we made our way over to the desert. The entrance to the cave was a lot more grand than the one on ASC, with the Rex, Bronto, and human statues lining the entrance. I set my sleeping bags up before heading into the reconstructed Life's Labyrinth. Now, right at the start, I was met with two doorways, so I went to the right, as going right is always the right move, of course.
Okay, here, baby uraniums. Huh.
Just like in the old labyrinth, there were letters with buttons scattered around not only the first room, but the various corridors around it. Now, the first letter I pressed was D, and then I returned back to the main room. The next letter I started looking for was R, and I found that on the right back side of the main room. Shortly after pressing that, I also pressed the letter A, which happened to be on the left side of the same room. Following that, I found the letter K, and then another letter A, this one being downstairs.
There should be a hidden button somewhere.
Hence why it's hidden.
I can already tell this place is going to drive me insane.
If you can find the letter U with the apostrophe downstairs, look to your left and you'll see this hidden button behind this crate. Pressing that will open this wall just to the right of you where you see press the letter R. Also, you should definitely watch your step the whole time in here as there's booby traps scattered throughout. Now that should be the whole sequence to progress, however it didn't work for the first time.
Did it move? No, so I gotta do it again. I think sometimes you have to do it like 3 times.
So to start over, I ran down to press D, then back up to the main room for R, A, and K. And then next I rushed downstairs to press K, then the A, and then the secret button to finally get to R. Now going back up to the middle, it's still yet to move, so I'm gonna have to try for a third time.
I'll do it again. Hope I'm doing it right. Okay, so I've done it 3 times. I just have to... Oh, never mind. Guess I'm going.
I jumped down the mysterious chimney looking shaft and I landed in a familiar looking hall with water at the bottom. I then carefully made my way over to the big closed gate and a couple of minutes of head scratching ensued as this door is supposed to open itself.
Why did this door not open?
Simply asking that question magically opened the door though, and that brought us to a room with 2 different ways to go. for the 2 different artifacts. There's a total of 4 in here, but you'll see those later on. There were a few buttons in this room as well though, so I crouched over to the left side first, pressed that one, and then slowly made my way over to the right side of the room to press the second button. Now the last button you need to press just under the human statue.
Okay, I'm gonna go right first because I heard right's the harder one.
After pressing a button on the wall, the gate opened up ahead and I had to do a little bit of parkour to get to the other side.
Boom.
That was just the start though, as I now had to go through another parkour course, and this one had spikes involved as well as a few other nasty surprises.
There's spikes there. Capros, not dealing with those.
I waited for the spikes to pop up before jumping onto the next platform and blasting the other crocs. The last platform was a bit roughed up, so I carefully crouched by the spikes to the other side, where I then spotted a red drop on a small pillar. So I jumped over next to the wall, and as I tried to get on the small ledge in front of me, I overshot my next jump and landed in the water, where a 150 capro tried to trickshot me but missed horribly. Now, to get out of this croc-infested water, I had to swim all the way back to the start and parkour my way through it again. Now this time though, I did make it back to the drop without plummeting down, and I found an Ascendant Glock inside with a few shells and a ghillie blueprint. Anyways, I parkoured through the rest of this hall leading to another closed gate, which you can open with a very hidden button just to the right of it. And that gate opens up straight to another gate, which of course you open up by pressing a button, also very well hidden just on the left side of it. Then you arrive into a room with a mysterious statue holding a red drop. So I carefully approached it from the side and climbed this conveniently placed room to access the drop and get some bonkers loot. Now behind the statue is where the next gate is located, and you open it by, yep, you guessed it, pressing 2 buttons on both sides of the doorway. Now this room looked pretty innocent at a first glance, but do not be fooled as it's riddled with traps. I crouched my way through most of it, and I then jumped over some suspicious looking slab in the floor, and sure enough, it was a trap.
Oh, oh my god, nearly killed me IRL.
As I slowly got closer to the drop, I almost got decapitated by a barrage of flaming arrows. They dropped from the ceiling, but thankfully they only just gave me a fresh haircut instead.
Holy flak chest piece.
That flak chest piece was actually nearly double the armor of my current one, so I immediately threw it on. Now to continue through the maze, you have to press 2 buttons on the right side of the room and then another 2 on the left, while also avoiding traps and Spider-Man apparently. And the order which you press the buttons is not random, and I actually messed it up the first time, so I had to try again. You have to start on the left side, press those 2 buttons going from the entrance of the room, and then press the 2 buttons on the right side. So you kind of go in some sort of U shape and then the door opens. Also, you might get jump scared by a few crawly boys, which you might want to take out fast as they slow you down and the door won't stay open for long.
This wall's gonna shut on me, dude.
Anyways, now that you find yourself in this tiny hall with 2 doors, you have to open the left one with a button just next to it. This will lead you to the fun part of the cave, the actual maze. However, we can skip all the headache by deploying my pyromane and getting over this wall.
I swear I just get over this wall with the pyromane.
So I tried to fit through the little gap with Hot Cheeto, but he was a bit too fat to go all the way through. So instead I had to land on the ledge and then jump off myself. From there, I marked the door with a rally point so I could see exactly where I needed to go. I then hopped off the wall and continued through the maze. I tried my best to follow the tutorial that I was watching and press the buttons in the exact sequence that I saw, but I got lost regardless.
And I'm back here. Am I? Oh my god.
I quickly unequipped my armor to avoid getting obliterated by the Arthros, and I killed all the ops with Cheeto.
Where am I, dude? I hear that artifact like above me.
What I knew for a fact though was that I was not going the right way.
I think I just need to be prepared to start a new life in here, bro.
Something about hearing the artifact but not being able to get to it was driving me nuts. Anyways, I cryoed Cheeto and opened up a couple of doors, eventually leading me to another red drop.
This is insane, dude. This is crazy how big this is. I zero clue where I am. This guide that I was watching, the worst guide ever, dude.
I somehow stumbled back into the starting point where I first jumped up the wall with Cheetos, so I went for round 2 of the maze.
Okay, I know what to do now. So this is gonna shut that door in the top middle. Got it. Okay, so that's what this pyromane's for. So I do what I just did, run back here. Instead, if you don't have a pyromane or something, you like kind of do it again, go around this way. This will make sense.
I ran through it from my memory and I got to the end where I was supposed to turn the pyromane into a shoulder pad. However, I couldn't do that because I already had Ugg on my shoulder. So now I stuffed him into my pocket and I made sure I could actually put Cheeto on my shoulder. Anyways, it's now actually time to run it and hopefully finally get through the maze.
Boom, I did it. Now that door's gonna shut. I did it. Boom. So good to bring that pyromane.
After the door shut, I stuffed Hot Cheeto back into my pocket and put Ugg back on my shoulder before jumping down to the first artifact room.
Boom, dude. Artifact. Dang. 1 out of 4 for this cave. Too easy. That was not easy at all.
After my little celebration, it was time to move on. A couple of parkour jumps later, I arrived at the sacrificial room. And there, I wasted absolutely no time in throwing Ugg under the bus.
Alright, Ugg, you've been good to me. Not good enough.
So long to our good friend Ugg. He was a mistake after all. So I went through and I was met with some ominous text followed by a halt, and I had to run all the way down and press a hidden button behind a ruin. Now this opened a trapdoor in the middle of the hall. I jumped down it, leading me to more spiky ruin parkour, and I timed it perfectly simply due to the fact that I am him, and I was greeted by yet another spike parkour hall. This time with a few bats as a bonus because they probably didn't want me to feel lonely after killing Ugg.
Oh my god. Gotta be more careful about pressure plates and stuff, dude.
There were a bunch more ops waiting for me just up ahead, but after handling those, I pressed one more button that opened the door to this big lush room. And there you had to commit a crime by killing a deer to anger the ancient spirits. Clearly one casualty was not enough, so I packed up a second deer and then the spirit animals started to appear.
Here, oh, there it is. Where's this guy going?
After killing off the waves of the spirits, I calmed them down and the double artifact room opened up.
Oh yeah, these are my artifacts.
And there was one last red drop waiting for me at the top, so I snagged that as well before heading to the drop down and cryoing up Cheeto. I leaped off the water and ran through the long canal that led to sunlight, and stairs with a little bit of parkour added in there. Finally, I entered this green glowy mushroom cave, and at the end of it was a door that opened up to the desert.
The daylight? Yes! I'm out. Okay. So I need to do the left side, right, to get the final artifact, but you need scuba for that, which I forgot. So I'm gonna head back to base and drop these off, and then we'll come back.
I made it back home on day 73 and displayed all the new artifacts.
Alright, man, I gotta get one more.
I dropped off the loot, grabbed my scuba tank and flippers, and headed right back.
Hey, back to the cave.
I parked Burnt Toast outside and headed in to start the letter sequence once again.
I do this Drakkar stuff like 3 times again.
As expected, the middle did not open on the first try or second, so third time's the charm, I guess.
Boom.
Anyways, I jumped down the shaft and ran into the room with the 2 doors. Now the sequence for pressing the buttons is the same, meaning left button first, then the right one, and then finally the middle.
Time we go left.
Now more ominous text on the wall and an even scarier drop down was revealed to me. So I jumped right in with my scuba and I was presented with 2 hallways that I could go down. I chose the left one and I took a right into this big open room with a megalodon.
Oh.
Not to worry though, as I swam through a little crevice which led me to some stairs back up to a non-flooded room. From there, I ran down a straight hall with 2 doors, and I ended up in a place with more buttons in 4 little rooms on the sides. So I first pressed all the ones on this pillar, in a circular pattern going from front to left, back, and then the right. That sequence opened the first door on the left, releasing a hungry saber-tooth to attack me, but unfortunately for the angry kitty, I had my freedom stick on me. Now, after dealing with that, I pressed the button next to me, and I ran into the room opposite to this one to press another button. Now from there, I ran into the back room on the left side where I got jump scared once again, this time by an Archaeopteryx. He also got to taste pure freedom before I pressed the button in the room that shut the door right in front of my face. Not to worry though, as it opened immediately because I messed up the sequence. So the correct sequence goes something like this. I pressed all the buttons on the pillar in the same circular fashion. Then the one in the saber room, quickly followed by the Archaeopteryx one. Now lastly, the room to the opposite the one that I've just been in, and finally the main door opened up.
Got it.
I know this is kind of confusing, but I'm trying my best here. This whole place is confusing. Anyways, this next room looked a bit similar to the first one. There was a pillar in the middle with 4 buttons on it, and then, you know, the 4 rooms around it. Now the sequence for this pillar was the button facing you as you enter the room, the one to the left, the one to the right, and then finally the back one. Now this opened to a small room with a drop to distract me from the danger that was actively jumping from behind me. Literally jumping me.
Oh my god.
With all the bites from the Trudons, it was just a matter of time before I passed out, so I quickly threw out Hot Cheeto and whistled him to neutral to deal with the threat while I took a good old nap.
So happy I brought the pyro, man.
When I finally woke up, I clapped the remaining Trudons and I got ran up on by a couple of Carnos. Without my boy Hot Cheeto, I definitely would have been cooked a long time ago. Anyways, once the situation calmed down a little bit, I pressed the button in the room with a drop and then snagged the loot.
Now what do I press?
Before I could even press anything though, I noticed Cheeto getting locked inside the drop room. And as I got it to release him, new Trudon spawned in and I got sent to bed again. Now, after waking up for the second time, I hopped on Cheeto and got straight back into the fight. But it seemed like I was just fighting forever.
I just can't do. It's just spawning infinite Trudons.
So I had to try and get through the entire sequence while having the ops try to stop me.
Yes, I got the room. It's the room I needed.
In this room, I was greeted by a hospitable duo of raptors, so I sent them back into the shadow realm. Now, in the middle of this room was another pillar with 4 buttons on each side. And the sequence to continue was the same as that of the first room. A circular pattern, but this time going for the front button, and the right one, and the left one, and then finally the back one.
This way first, right?
I had to run down this maze-like corridor, which led me to a drop down in the water again, so Cheeto had to go in that cryopod.
That is terrifying.
Anyways, I jumped right in, and through this room was actually a really cool shipwreck in the middle, and then statues near the corners. And of course, these statues have buttons on them, and of course I've got to press all 4, but nothing happened. So I tried a second time, but still nothing nothing happened. Anyways, I tried a third time, but doing the sequence in the opposite direction, and that actually opened the door to a staircase which led me up to a crack in the wall. I then had to crouch through that and do some parkour around the flooded room, but thankfully it was pretty simple to get up to the part where I had to walk past the ship's mast. But I'm him, so I had no issues balancing on the other side. But however, I did get rudely shot by a trank arrow. Anyways, I jumped over to this ledge covered by vines, and that led me to the next room where Spider-Man himself was waiting for me. More ominous text with a slow opening door that led into a hall with even more sketchy parkour on slim horizontal pillars.
Bro, did I miss a button?
The answer is yes, but I didn't have to go back too far as it was just on one of the vertical pillars. Now, after pressing that, the doors opened up to the next parkour room with another button. I then pressed it and carefully navigated the course, taking my time to make sure to not fall off.
Oh my god, I barely made that.
But we were still not done with the parkour, as I had to do the same thing I just did on even slimmer pillars. A very silent, stressful, and focused minutes later, I took the last leap of faith and I was safe.
Made it. Oh my god. That floor was insta-death, if you didn't know.
I then ran down a flight of stairs where the artifact of the Skylord was waiting for me. Now I was back in the sacrificial room.
Oh wait, how do I sacrifice? What?
Yeah, it slowly dawned on me that I didn't bring another sacrifice to throw into the certain death pit. And the only tame I have on me is the Pyromane, and it could actually be sacrificed as it does turn into a shoulder pet.
I don't have anything else to sacrifice. I thought I'd only have to do this once.
So I threw out Hot Cheeto and transformed him into the shoulder pet. But me throwing him there was completely tearing my heart apart.
It was an honor serving with you, Hot Cheeto. This is for the greater good. What? Okay, I guess the door just didn't work. I'm gonna leave Hot Cheeto there, but I'm just gonna use the door, dude. He was supposed to be sacrificed.
Yeah, at least I didn't have to watch Hot Cheeto take an incinerating bath, which he would probably actually enjoy. He's made of fire. Anyways, but this time would be the last time I would ever see him again regardless. And it was a hard goodbye since Hot Cheeto actually served me well. Anywho, I pressed the button again, opening the hatch and leading me to more some spiky parkour and of course, Batman. 2 scorpions and another group of bats later, I found myself in the big spirit hall on day 75.
I'm gonna have to fight these spirit things again.
This time, I wouldn't have Cheeto to back me up though.
I can't believe the Hot Cheeto sacrifice didn't work. That's such minus aura, dude.
The sacrificial chamber was not the only thing that broke though, as I got the spirits have a calm message up at the top without me having to kill a single spirit animal. As a matter of fact, they didn't even show up.
What?
Perhaps they just looked at me and knew that I'm him, so they don't even have to bother spawning in.
Anyways, I got my artifact. Let's get out of here. Only lost Hot Cheeto in the process. And Ugg, but nobody cares about Ugg. F in the chat for Ugg in the comments.
I ran through the canals again, up the holy stairs, and slowly through the glowing mushroom cave.
Oh, we did it, dude.
Anyways, I returned to Burnt Toast and we flew back to base to put the last artifact up for display.
Boom. My artifact room is done. This looks sick. Oh yeah. Well worth it.
After that treacherous adventure, I dropped off all my gear and I stared at the smithy for a solid minute before looking at my dormant forges. They still had a bunch of raw metal inside, but no wood to cook it.
Alright, I need the steel wood to get metal going. I think I'm just gonna have to farm primitive theory saddles, dude. I'm not gonna have time to get a blueprint. It's already day 75.
That being said, I hopped on Bird to go and collect some mandatory tax from my neighbors. To make all the theory saddles, I crafted a second smithy.
Bro.
A quick relog to turn PvE mode off. Later, I placed down the smithy and threw some hide and fiber in it. I then hopped on one of my theories and then farmed more fiber. For some reason, the theory saddles also require wood to craft, which is real bad news for the beavers.
Farm hide while I'm out here too. I'll kill an alpha carno. This is level 25. Oh, level 20. Even better.
I continued farming fiber into day 76 while also killing the occasional dino made of hide.
I honestly feel I can get hide faster on my griffin, dude.
So I returned back to base to store the stuff away, but I wouldn't go back to farming hide just yet. Instead, I wanted to get a bunch of wood out of the way. And the words that I uttered next would probably come as a surprise to all of you.
Instead of stealing, I'm gonna go do some farming for theory for wood, these saddles.
Yeah, I decided to give the taxpayers a break and instead farm wood myself. Now, of course, I did that with a theory, and it was actually pretty easy to get a ton of wood as they absolutely shred through the entire forest in seconds. And I actually got a lot of wood per tree. Now, anyways, when I returned, I crafted the first few saddles to see that metal would likely be the lacking resource most of the time.
Can't believe I'm doing this a whole 100 days with primitive forges. Crazy, dude.
With 5 saddles made, I started to throw them on the boss theories so I could see how many more I would actually need to craft.
Man, I cannot get over how cool these artifacts look. I'm glazing myself, dude. This looks so cool. Dude, I think this might be like my favorite house base area that I've ever built, ever, in any of my videos. I think this just looks so cool.
Anyways, I looked through my storage boxes and I found a bunch of hide just scattered across all of them. So I brought them over to my smithy to make another saddle, of course.
Alright, I gotta wait for more metal to smelt.
But on day 77, I found a bunch of metal inside the vault.
Oh, I've got metal just chilling in here. What?
I was pretty rich, just not really organized. Anyways, I brought that all over to the smithy and I made 5 more saddles. I was only in need of around 4 more saddles, so I threw more wood into the smithy and made 2, and then I headed out to get the remaining hide with burnt toast. Now, when I returned, I crafted the final 2 saddles and threw them onto the boss fighters.
Boom.
Day 78 looks something like this.
Hey, snack time.
I left my PC to go get a snack, so the morning was just an intense staring contest with my stone foundations. Anyways, when I got back, I did a wild dino wipe in hopes that I could get beehives to spawn in. And for the remainder of the day, I decided to give my inventory a very thorough look through. When I mentally reloaded on day 79, I did my best to deliver a motivational speech.
Alright, I did a dino wipe to try and get beehives to spawn in. We'll see if it works.
Yeah, even though I made an industrial cooker, I still have made exactly 0 sweet veggie cakes. And it's all due to the fact that this map has refused to spawn in beehives for some reason. Anyways, I grabbed my crossbow and grapples again and headed out to the redwoods to collect sap and try to find honey. I'm not going to be able to find any, I don't even know why I'm going. Anyways though, I did actually get a decent amount of sap, which was expected since I haven't been here in a while. I then flew through the forest swiftly, just looking at trees and hoping to spot a beehive, but I still couldn't see any, so back to base I went. The plan for day 80 was to go out and tame a Yudi, as they're basically a must-have for any boss fight. Now, looking into my vault, I found this Ascendant crossbow with 330 damage, much better than my Mastercraft one, so I swapped them out and then loaded up Tranks.
The Griffins can get fear ward by Udis, which kinda presents a problem. That would make it super hard to trap.
I had to get it one way or another though, so I went out to the snowy mountains near the ice cave, and I flew around the area for a while as things have still yet to respawn since the dino wipe. I then flew through the murdered snow as well to get that to load in and then return back home to wait.
I really don't know if these theories are gonna be strong enough to kill the Gamma boss without veggie cakes, dude. Hard times, man. Real hard times. Let's fly around trying to get stuff to spawn back in, man. Not sure what else to do.
Since I was over at the Wyvern Trench on day 81, I reminded myself that I wanted to get one of each wyvern.
I forgot that I wanted to get wyverns. Been kind of busy doing stuff, very important stuff. You're a level 15, dude. You need to be punished.
The first egg that I spotted was this level 155 fire wyvern egg, which seemed to have an unhealthy amount of glow to it. I grabbed it anyway, and then when I flew down to check another nest, Burnt Toast decided to dip on me.
Oh, where are you going? He wants that wyvern body. What are you doing, Burnt Toast?
I got back on him and dove across the trench, spotting a similarly bright glowing egg. And this one was a lightning wyvern egg, and it was also really good level.
Level 180? Oh my god.
Shortly after that, I found a poison egg as well, but it was just pretty mid. Anyways though, I did grab it regardless to complete the trench trio, and now I just had to go out and snag an ice wyvern egg to get the full collection. But before going out to do that, I returned back to my base to try and incubate these 3.
What? Need more ACs, I guess.
So I made up a bunch of GPUs in the fabricator and then loaded up with more crystal and polymer, and then finally made a few extra air conditioners. Now after placing all those down, the eggs were just warm enough to start incubating.
No? Oh, yeah. Really? Looks like you gotta like throw it at the exact right spot. This guy's a level 5, so there's no way I use him, but now I just need to add him to the collection.
The lightning on the other hand was 180, a really high level.
Oh, this guy looks sick, dude.
I named him Storm and threw out the fire egg as well. Now once I hatched, I named the fire one Flame. I took Storm out for a walk to get him imprinted. I pet Acid to give him his imprint as well, but Flame wanted to be a bit extra and asked for milk.
Yeah, so this guy's not getting an imprint. While these guys grow, let's go get an ice wyvern egg. I think I know exactly where to get one.
I flew over to the frozen lake in the murder snow where I'd last seen an entire nation of ice wyverns.
Oh my god, okay. Alright, there's no chance I go into the forest full of ice wyverns. That's a death wish.
For the time being though, I returned back home to watch over the other wyverns as they grew up. There was that one pillar with a nest all the way back above the ice cave, so on day 82 I decided to head over towards that.
Hello, Red Drop. I'm also conveniently flying over here to try and get an ice wyvern egg.
There was in fact an egg just waiting for me, once again guarded by the 2 parents.
150 and a 25, which could it be?
Now this time I was not really stealthy and one of them noticed me, so I decided to grab the other one's attention and just try to lead them away from the nest.
Oh, look at all these delicious parasaurs down here. Are they still on my butt? Oh, dude, their AI is like good.
One dive later, I lost their attention completely, but one of them actually flew back to the nest. Now, since peacefully removing the egg from their possession was no longer an option, I decided to deliver a more long-term solution by challenging this mythical beast to a dogfight.
Of course, it's the 150.
I started off by pulling a high yo-yo to get the angle advantage, which scored me a free hit on the wyvern. I then backed off so I could gain a little altitude and strike it again with a head-on pass. I scored a critical hit on the ice wyvern, but I'd also got my grip installed due to its ice breath attack.
Ooh.
While I was recovering, the wyvern pulled an excellent right flank on me, so I had to retaliate with my main cannon. With my jet in VTOL mode, I was pretty vulnerable to a number of attacks from the ice wyvern. However, my jet is pretty rigid and can take a few solid hits before going down. So I kept the pressure up with my gun, and the wyvern soon lost control completely due to the amount of damage that I caused. Anyways, now that the foe is defeated, I could go down and get the egg.
These be the 150, a level 20. I'm not even. I know I can find a better egg than that, dude. Come on.
Yeah, all that drama for the egg to be even worse than the low-level wyvern. Anyways, I flew back over to the murder snow to look for more nests, but the enemy was still on to me, and I got caught off guard.
Oh, hello. I don't even see where you came from. Where's your nest?
Since the wyvern was pretty persistent on attacking me, I deployed my main cannon once again to cease the fight. Soon, after a bit of looking around, I spotted a nest on my radar, so I flew over to check that out.
For a level 15, it got worse.
There were still a ton of bogeys in the airspace around me though, so I kept my eyes peeled for more nests.
And I guess I'm taking a level 20. I mean, it's only like, I'm not really gonna use it. This griffin's too good. It's like a collector's item, you know, I just want to have all the wyverns, but a level 20? That. Guess I don't really have any other choice.
That being said, I yoinked the now unattended ice egg and flew home. The other 3 wyverns were all grown by now, so I moved them over to the edge of the hill before throwing out the ice egg to incubate.
Bruh.
I did have one extra air conditioner in my house, so I brought that over to it and it finally hatched. And of course, I named the baby Frosty.
Oh, 20 ice wyvern. Kill me. Whatever. I have all 4 wyverns now, though. How many wyverns do you have? 0.
Since Storm was my strongest wyvern, I headed out to test him on the local pedestrians as I wanted to get some raw meat for the wyverns. When I returned from my little killing spree on day 83, I fed the wyverns and I grabbed berry from the fridge so I could fill up the troughs for the fairies. When I got back, Frosty was now fully grown, so I tested out his breath over the hill. Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic.
But I got my wyverns collected. Back to looking for a Yudi. I might take this guy out. I can easily deal with the Carnos because I think I can pick him up.
So I flew over to the snowy mountains and this time I actually found what I was looking for, a level 135 Yudi. So I blasted the Carnos with the lightning, but it didn't really phase them, so I had to change plans.
Oh, I should have set up the trap first. What am I doing?
I flew down the hill and quickly put the trap together and returned back to get their attention. Now while the Yudi was singled out, I tried getting it into the trap with the wyvern, but it just was dumb and walked right around it.
I'm just gonna try and shoot it off the back of my griffin.
I landed Storm back at the crib and I brought Burnt Toast out to fight the Yudi instead in air-to-ground combat. As effective as the strategy was, the Yudi had its own countermeasures.
Why is this thing not gone to sleep yet? Oh my.
When I regained control of the aircraft, I spotted the Yudi way down the hill, trying its best to hide from me.
What are you doing? Do not skip your reward again.
Finally, after countless tranks, the big furry chicken just gave up and stood still waiting for me to finish knocking it out.
How are you not asleep? There we go. Alright, let's go get some spikes for this thing.
So I got back home, grabbed up a few resources, chopped down some trees with a theory, and then finally made the spikes.
Go set up spike walls around this guy. It's gonna lead my army into battle against Nunatak.
When I returned, I encased the giant chicken in spikes, and I went out to get some prime meat for him. Remember guys, when in doubt, boomstick out. Anywho, I got back to the Yudi and fed him, quickly getting him tamed.
Boom.
I named him Chicken Little, don't ask questions. Anyways, I brought Chicken Little back to my humble abode and I unlocked his saddle.
Oh, Kipper. Forgot about you.
I then proceeded to craft a Theory saddle instead of a Yudi saddle.
Wow, oh my god, I meant to make a Yudi saddle. And I made a Theory saddle. Now I need to farm more hide.
So on day 86, it was back to killing innocent pedestrians for hide.
Make the right saddle this time.
Now, with the Yudi saddled up, I could bring him over to the hatchery to commit unspeakable crimes against nature.
Oh, chill. Alright, let's farm this guy. Bunch of raw meat to force feed him back up.
And I actually went out on Storm to kill a bunch of weak creatures between the castle and Viking Bay. And on day 87, I shoved all the raw meat into Chicken Little to get him healed up.
Let's see if any beehives have, spawned in. One last check, pretty much. I mean, I still got 12 days, but like, if they're not spawning in now, I'm just gonna assume they're never gonna spawn in.
I checked the most common spawn closest to the Viking Bay, and even the Redwoods, but still not a single hive on my radar.
No beehives, dude. I genuinely don't understand why there are no beehives. Surely I can still do the Gamma boss though, right? right?
Yeah, I seriously can't tell you guys why the beehives were not spawning in, so there's really no way for me to reliably get veggie cakes. The only other way to get them is to farm supply drops, but those have a really low chance of actually dropping them, and they either have to be yellow or red, so this is really not feasible either. I just had to cross my fingers and hope the best with my Theory army.
Day 89. I know I got like 11 days left, but I got my boss army. I got my Yui. Oh, I got all the artifacts I need to start the boss, and I got this crazy shotgun. So yeah, I'm pretty confident. So confident, in fact, that I'm gonna eat pizza and just sit and watch the world go by and drink root beer. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Not even Noon Attack can stop. I'm definitely killing that scaly, ugly dragon. Okay, time to fuel up.
As I stated, I stood in front of my base throughout the entirety of day 89. And on day 90, I wanted to repair all my army to truly prepare for the boss fight.
Holy, that's expensive. Might as well repair my flak, just in case anything goes haywire in there. Skill tree is definitely cool. I think this will be more useful in Lost Colony, however. Okay, it's day 91. I have my full boss army, all the artifacts, all the wyverns. I've accomplished everything that I've wanted to in this 100 days and more. Look at this base. It looks amazing. You can't tell me I'm wrong. So I know I'm technically supposed to reach 100 days, but I've done this before. I don't see a point in going to 100 days. It would just be filler content. You guys want to see me fight the boss. I want to fight the boss. I'm itching to fight it to know if I win or lose. Because I don't have veggie cakes, because beehives don't spawn. I hate everything. Anyways, I think it's about time that I just nut up and go fight this boss. Even if it's day 91 or day 92 by the time I actually fight it. I see no reason to do filler content until day 100. This map has been awesome. I'm ready to fight Noon Attack. That's what I've set out to do.
And that is exactly what I'm gonna do. I filled all the empty cryopods that I had with boss theories, and I flew out to the blue obelisk to deploy them. And on the second trip, I brought the Yudi and the remaining 6 theories. With all my fighters deployed on day 92, I could head back home for the final time.
Alright, got the gang lined up. Now let's go get tributes and stuff. Or the artifacts, really. Okay, time to take my beautiful artifacts out of their room that I made them. Man, they look so good in here. I do not want to take them out of here, dude. Are you kidding me? Look at this view. Walking through the room to your artifact. Oh, you. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Gotta do it, though. Gotta do it.
With all the artifacts in my left pocket, the room looked pretty empty again, just like the day I finished building it. So anyways, I grabbed some extra food from my fridge as well as the 3 veggie cakes that I got throughout these 100 days. And lastly, I took all the medical brews before hopping on burnt toast to fly back to the blue obelisk. I took a little bit of inspiration from the legend, the myth himself, Ashton Hall, and I used time and space to warp into the future by the time that I arrived at the obelisk.
That's weird. Took me 8 days to fly over here. It's day 100. Okay. Enough with the tomfoolery. It is day 100 though. Okay, I can't even take myself seriously. Anyways,
I set my Yudi to ignore group whistles and set all the theories on neutral.
alright, we are ready to do this, boss. Kipper, I need some motivation right now. What do you have to say? What are your wise words of wisdom?
Tung 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 sahur.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I've spent the past 100 days building an army, building the best base that I could, collecting all 10 artifacts, even going into the labyrinth cave, and getting wyverns, griffins, a bison, you name it. I have done everything. I have conquered Ragnarok. So surely the Gamma Noon Attack boss can't be that hard, can it? I'm ready.
Only one way to truly find out. So I prepared my freedom stick and soon I got teleported into the arena. I quickly hopped on Chicken Little to courage buff my theories and we started pushing forward.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to defeat waves of ice worms and then I can get her to land, him to land. I don't know. I can get the dragon to land.
So I whistled my army to the frozen lake where the ice worms started to pop out of the ground.
Kill it. Kill it with fire. Oh yeah. That's the damage I like to see.
I hopped off the Yudi for a second just to shoot the dragon a couple of times, but he clearly didn't care that much.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Spawn more ice worms. Do it. Do it.
And one of my theories was having a jolly old time picking fiber from the bushes. I guess business never sleeps. I whistled my army to follow me so we could dodge the spikes Noon Attack was launching at us, and soon the next wave of death worms arrived.
There we go. Absolutely decimated. Okay, those ice balls do a bit of damage.
I also forgot to put veggie cakes on a theory, so I quickly hopped off to do that.
That hurt.
I shot the dragon a few more times before the next wave of death worms appeared, but they got clapped instantly as usual. Soon after getting rid of those guys, Noon Attack actually decided to land for the first time, so I sent all my tickle chickens into battle.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I just took the brunt of that. Let me out.
I tried to get away on the Yudi, but Noon Attack was smart and he started chasing me down.
Hello? Hello? Why is it targeting me? Hello? Hello? Why is it targeting? It's quit pooping. Oh my god, if I die to the Gamma boss, why is this thing insane? Why is it targeting me?
When Noon Attack took off again, I inspected my Yudi and he was nearly on life support. But then more deathworms came out of the ground to occupy my Theris. The dragon was flying around, but it was also close enough to the ground to where my Theris could actually hit it, so I sent them in again.
Kill it. Y'all are on neutral, are you not? Oh my god, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're not fighting back.
Yeah, not sure what was going through their minds, but I had to whistle them back to regroup and rebuff. I then shot the dragon a bunch of times, making it fly down to me.
Papa's coming. Kill it. Kill it. There we go. There we go. Now we're talking. Come on, now we're in business, right? Dude, this boss is so hard. I can't even imagine this on Alpha.
I did my best to stay back with the Yudi, blasting the dragon as much as possible and keeping the Theris courage roar up.
Okay, the Theory healths are looking okay. I'm just gonna keep blasting this thing, man.
Waiting over here seemed like a better alternative to running around the ice, as my Theris didn't get pushed around by the boss and deathworms that came to us.
Genuinely cannot imagine this thing on Alpha.
By the time it came down for another landing, it was down to half health, so I sent my army in full force once again.
Dude, why is this boss insane? This is Gamma, dude. This is like some Alpha difficulty island stuff. Come on, AIs. Find your way back. They're all idiots.
This time, it landed on the frozen lake again, so we had to rush it. I got a bit too close with Chicken Little though, and it ended up targeting me again.
I'm so cooked. Why are you going for me? Why does it single the player mount out?
Also, running away from it seemed to be impossible as it was fast and it slowed me down with the ice breath. Also, it had a huge bite radius.
Come on, boys, kill it.
I roared for the final time before getting forced off the Yudi as it was about to die. However, Noon Attack's health was also looking grim, and my Theris avenged Chicken Little right after his death.
Come on. I was on foot, dude. Oh my god. Oh, we did it. We actually did it. Okay.
I ran over to collect my trophy and the 100 element that I would definitely put to good use.
All that for 100 element and these tech grams? Well, me and Kipper did it. Kipper and I should say. We survived 100 days of Ragnarok and beat Noon Attack. It wasn't easy. I don't have anything else to say. I'm still stressed out about that boss fight. That's insane. Thank you all for watching. I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep now. That was terrifying. Goodbye.